You are now listening to the Old Head, New Head podcast with your hosts, Eric Iberg and Ethan Schaefer.
Goddamn kids.
Shut up, old man!
Yeah.
What up?
You know, fucking pounding them out Thursday. Hanging in the garage.
Look at that hoodie. That's a sick rendition of the Inspired hoodie. I haven't seen that one yet.
It was a tall tee from like 8-9 years ago.
Okay, word. And what is that you're smoking on, Iberg?
Fuck, man, right away. You're coming out swinging, not even hellos. Of course I'm smoking. Well, you know, I roll the Dark Horse Farms up in my shit, courtesy of Ross Jacob, the ganja farmer. And then, you know, I roll it up with my Blazy suits and papers and filters. So same place, same time, same smoke, fucking stoked.
You equipped with the 40 this week?
No, it's early. It's before 12. I'm missing my kids' second grade's class party because it's like the last day of school for this podcast. So no car, no 40, missing parties. But we got Chris Benchetler. So fucking stoked.
Yeah. I'm also taking it easy. I'm going with the pure LaCroix today. No flavor, no nothing. So we will see.
And he's like all about the Grateful Dead. So he'll be probably tripping on mushrooms while doing this interview, I'm guessing.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to see. I have some questions about that. I heard him talk about that in some other interviews. But we're banging these out, man. People don't know.
So what do you know about Chris? So I'd like to hear from the new head perspective. Who the fuck is Chris Benchetler and skiing to you?
To me, Chris is the GoPro guy. He does a lot of videos with GoPro, and the Grateful Dead guy. So all his prior stuff, I know people were into Nimbus when I was younger, but like that wasn't really like what I was super into. So I started seeing a lot more of him when the Grateful Dead collab came along, and I was like, damn. And then when he put out that movie to go along with it a couple years ago, I was like, damn, this guy's into some high production shit.
So are you a Deadhead? Do you like this style of music? Because I'm guessing it's a tribe, like a serious tribe of humanity. Like, to make that movie, you're probably like,
yeah. I enjoy them. Yeah, I think they're good. I was one of those people, and I've talked about this on my podcast before. I'm the type of person that if I don't understand something and a lot of people are into it, I'm like, that shit's whack. I was that same way with surfing. I'm that way with climbing right now, and I was that way with the Grateful Dead. And then I started listening to them, and I'm like, ooh, I kind of get the hype. Like, this is kind of good, and the concerts are fun. So
you've been to a concert?
Yeah, well, I've been to the Dead & Co. concerts. I forget what my first one was. Maybe 2019, summer, Boston, Gillette Stadium. It's pretty good.
This is how you will probably bond.
Yeah.
And you'll start saying what dates, how many shows.
I don't know if I'm in that deep. I think I've been to 2 ever. I went to that one in Boston, and then I went to one at Madison Square Garden for Halloween when I was in college. That was a fun one. New York City on Halloween. Different experience.
I can't imagine. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm excited because I've known him since he's a little guy. He's from the Mammoth area, I believe Bishop, right outside of Mammoth. Mm-hmm. So I got to watch him like grow up on the freestyle team when Phil Bellinger and Sarah Burke were his coaches, and he got taught a cork 7 for the first time as a kid. So I got to watch it. I mean, he was the U.S. Open contest kid. He was the guy with a face mask, bandana on that looked kind of thuggish when he was younger, like older teens. Yeah. Like, I don't know, his journey has been impressive to watch for the last 20 to 25 years. And I think that's why we're having him, because he's definitely created his own path, and he's still here and he's still creating.
Yeah. Well, this is a good episode to follow up the Ferdy episode, because Ferdy is definitely, pedal down, creating stuff, and and Chris is that on steroids. Like, you listen to other interviews he's done, and he's our first guest in a while that's done other podcasts. So I think he's going to come well prepared to talk for a while. But
well, I appreciate you doing your research, because I really wanted like that angle on this, because I know him personal so much. Yeah. And I was like, wow, it's really fun if we have the research angle and the young person, and then because I get to ask him like, I mean, we're gonna find out. It's gonna be an older brother story again. I promise you that.
Yeah.
And, this is awesome shit.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to someone who's like a relentless creator. He like, well, I mean, we'll talk about it with him, but just all the dead stuff he was talking about and the way he like took one opportunity and then capitalized on that and turned it into 50 different opportunities. A lot of people could take notes. This guy's figured it out.
I'm stoked for you to direct that conversation because I'm really stoked you'd listen to all those conversations and that he does go out and promote all the work that he does do and doesn't just create it and hope the universe sees it.
Yeah. All right. And before we invite him in, where are you coming to us from this week?
Seltzer, Minnesota. Same place, same garage.
Beautiful. And this is my last episode here, maybe, unless I come back on my way back in, but I am still in Jake Dubé's bedroom. He is gone. I'm in Seattle and sleeping in the van outside of his house.
Where do you think you'll be next week?
Next week, I might be on Vancouver Island. I think that's where I'm going right after this. So I'm going to dip into camp a little bit. But this is a big development, Iberg. Huge development. I bought Starlink yesterday, so I got internet wherever I go. So I could be in the middle of the woods doing episodes now. So we are good to go. Yeah. And it is not cheap, I'll tell you that. Anymore. What's up?
You don't need a home anymore.
Don't need a home. Just put up that little satellite. Yeah. Dude, we're flying through these. This is episode 8.
Almost halfway point. And 2 more shows.
I know.
Next week and booyah.
Yeah. And we don't even know who our young head is next week. We got Ferdy. I hit up Ferdy. He got back to me this morning. He is going to help grease some gears and make some stuff happen. He's going to...
Unicorn.
That's what we want.
Yeah. There's another Norwegian kid that Casavan got all stoked on, and I have it written down somewhere. But no, we're close. Yeah. No, here it is. Tor mode.
Yeah.
Torstad.
Yeah.
Yes, he's the man.
We've had a couple people. I think Edroy was talking about him. I think Ferdy was talking about him. I don't know the first thing about him, dude. I don't even know anything about him.
But enough people are saying his name.
I know. We got to do it.
All right, I'm sending the thing to Chris.
All right, let's get Chris in here. All right. He's joining. Let's see. Let's see what's going on.
Hello, gentlemen.
How are you, Benchetler?
Great to see you, Eric.
You too, man. It's been like a decade or more.
Maybe more. It's so good to see you, man.
Hell yeah. Thanks for doing this, man. It's fun. I'm going to hang out in my garage in Minnesota, talk ski stuff wherever you may be in life.
Anything for you, Eric Heiberg.
No way.
Yeah. Well,
you know how talented you are now. Careful. I know what I could ask you for.
Yeah, exactly. So you're in Minnesota. I heard, or maybe you told me, I thought you were living overseas. Were you not?
I was in Denmark from like 2013 to 18.
Okay.
And then moved the family over here and
awesome.
Tried to figure out life, and then disappeared for like 5 years, and then jumped back into ski stuff full time last spring.
Beautiful. Yeah. So good to see ya.
You too, man. Fun time. So where are you coming from?
I'm home in Mammoth, sitting in my studio. It's the only place I can get a little quiet, or else you'd hear a little man running around screaming and having a good time. So
you live in the actual town of Mammoth Lakes?
I still do.
Big thing.
Never left. Never planning on leaving.
Lucky guy, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is Ethan, my co-host. So
hello, Ethan.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, this is awesome to have you on, man.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah. We've been looking forward to this one.
Awesome. I am looking forward to it too. I didn't have time to listen to some of you guys' previous shows.
Oh, you can't. We're not releasing anything.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
We're doing like 2 of these a week. We're doing a new head and then an old head. So 2 a week, and then we'll release them weekly starting in September for like 4 or 5 straight months.
Awesome.
But point of the show is, man, I'll just start it off for people that are listening is, you know, like the idea was the old heads. Like, I wanted to talk to them because everyone that I brought up or will have after you is guys that created their own path.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the best part about this sport is you don't have to go win. You know, like you can go just be creative, and you've been surrounded by it forever. And then also what path you created. So how'd you like go about it? Like, and then get to hear your story. And then like for me to talk with all the new kids, I don't fucking get it. So to talk to all these kids under 25, I'm like, fuck, man, that's sweet. Now I don't have to judge it because I know they're smarter than me because they're the future, right? Just like when we were younger, we're like, we're going to change this shit and do awesome stuff. And the old people don't fucking know. So for sure, they have to think like that. So now maybe we get to work more together, you know, and like get to teach some of the young kids some things, and the young kids can teach us some things, and then actually make it more realistic for people to maybe make careers out of it rather than be like beyond extremely talented like yourself. Because I mean, like a lot of kids have talent. You're a little special.
I don't think I'm special. I just.
Well, you are, and I'm telling you, you are. So look around you. There's plenty of reasons why.
Appreciate that. Awesome.
Start it off, Ethan.
Let's begin. Well, so Chris, you're an interesting guest because the past few guests that we've had have not done any podcasts at all, but you have done plenty. So it's funny. It's always funny for me interviewing someone where I know a lot of their story already, but we'll try to dig some new stuff up, especially since Iberg's known you for so long. But with any good story, we'll start at the beginning. So where did you grow up, Chris?
I grew up in Bishop and in Mammoth. I am still here in Mammoth. I had the fortunate path of two parents that met in Mammoth in the 70s, and then they got sick of shoveling, moved to Bishop for a bit, had my brother and I, and then got into skiing at a young age and fell in love with this place and moved up here in probably around the time I met Eric. I think I was living here full time by like age 16, but I was on the teams before that and spending all my time in Mammoth. So kind of grew up half really, but a lot of.
And what was it like growing up in Bishop? Because I was just there early May, and we got a flat tire and had to get all the way back to Mammoth on a flat tire. And that's when everything was really highlighted that Owens Valley has pretty much no resources in it if shops are closed. Like the closest Walmart was 5.5 hours away because the passes were closed. So what's it like growing up in the middle of nowhere?
I love it personally. I don't really need the amenities so much. Travel can be a bit difficult at times. Obviously, if you need to get somewhere quick, that's never going to happen. But that isolation helps foster creativity and just being surrounded by nature. These mountains are gigantic, so it's kind of has a feeling of a bit of a Austria or small village vibe, but you're surrounded by desert as well. So it's the landscape's incredible. I don't know. I find a lot of inspiration.
What do you do for fun as a Bishop kid? Because that's what I remember when I first met you. I was like, he's from Bishop, and I'm like, oh, that's a kind of a drive, but it's not much more of a thought. But like, what are you just mountain biking and climbing mountains and like running in the deserts and hot springs, or like what do you do as a kid?
We skied every single weekend, and then before and after school, I BMX biked. I wasn't mountain biking, but we had a bunch of jumps. I went through all the phases. I mean, I was into art as a kid, so I did that indoors, but then I had a paintball phase. A bunch of my friends and I built some paintball courses around Bishop. We had biking phases, built a lot of jumps around town. We had skateboarding, was kind of like Bishop was the big city, so all my Mammoth friends would come down and skate. And I think the biggest stair set we had was probably only like a 6 or a 7 set, but it was still something to ollie. And lots of little ledges and manual pads and stuff. So did all the normal shit, really. Just
sports a deal in a town like that? Like, did kids for team sports?
Team
like,
sports, yeah, of course.
Team or a baseball team or a football team?
Yep, all of it. I just had zero interest and was on the more creative path, I guess, of just making my own existence a little bit. So
how many people were in your, say, before 8th grade class? Of all of Bishop, how many kids are in that class?
that's a valid question. I want to say, I don't remember 8th grade, but I feel like I remember high school has about 200 kids in each class, like
This is
200.
Bishop, not Mammoth.
This is Bishop, yeah.
So is it like 50-50 split? Like you're either the outdoorsy person or you're the guy who plays team sport?
No, I would say we were a little bit more of the outcast, but I similar to how I am now, I just found interest in harmony with being friends with everyone. Like there's a very big indigenous native contingency. There's like, I think the Owens Valley has still one of the largest tribes. So there's a big native presence, which is cool. So we would have
school, like
we would
you
have like full-on dances at school, and they had a museum there. It was part of our culture, which was rad. And so there was a big group of natives that I was friends with. My father was a contractor, and we lived off of the native reservation. Our house was like the next street over. And so I had a few friends that were part of that culture. Then I had some climber friends, very little climber friends. Climbing was pretty fringe at that point. But one friend in particular was super into bouldering, and then he went off to the Israeli army. He was Jewish, I believe. So he went over to and joined the army. Pretty rad. But yeah, so it was my buddies were all skateboarders, and our crew was not nearly as big as the football and team sports crew. I mean, you guys have probably all been through public school. There's little cliques that you get.
I was just thinking, like, it's so unique in anytime you're in a small school, it's like, I don't know, it's the same as a big school, just smaller. Some things are a little more stuck out,
Yeah.
And so it's not as clicky as the movies, but I mean, at the same time, you don't stick out that much if you're the band geek, because there's another 500 of you in your school that do band.
Yeah.
So you're never a geek in anything you do, because there's mass quantities of people that are just like you on the math team or debate team. You get a varsity letter jacket just like for being a football player.
Yeah. I was one of the few that was real obsessed with skiing. A lot of kids were into team sports, skateboarding, and then there's also a pretty big ranching community. There were some kids and my parents rode cutting horses before they had us. So when they moved from Mammoth to Bishop, they got super into ranching and horses. And then so we had friends that still had their horses and cattle. I mean, I don't know, I was connected to it all. It was all interesting.
Yeah, it's a unique place, man. Yeah. Well, out of all the places I've ever lived in my life, from Bishop, you're 4 hours to Reno and 5.5 to LA. Yeah. And there ain't shit really anywhere else. And so, to put yourself in that perspective, if anyone who's listening to this, imagine driving one desert highway to get to the next town for either 4 hours or 5.5.
Exactly.
And that's only two directions. You can't go a third direction. Potentially, you can go a fourth to the east, and then you're like, maybe I can get to Salt Lake in 9 hours.
Yeah. Yep. Depending on the year, too, you can get through Death Valley, get to Vegas in probably 4.5 hours.
All right, forget about Vegas. It doesn't seem like a real place you should go.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You do get to drive through the Intergalactic Highway, and that was my highlight of going to Vegas from Mammoth.
Area 51, baby. Go and see some aliens.
Nice. So, Chris, how old are you now? I'm just trying to get a gauge for you and Iberg's overlap.
It's a good question. I'm born in 86. I'm 37. I will be 38 November. Yeah.
All right. So, Iberg, you were a little bit
38, but not yet.
Iberg, how old were you when you met Chris, and what were your first impressions of this local shredder?
My first time was probably 2002 winter, 2001-2, when I moved down there with Phil Ballinger and Sarah Burke. And they coached the free ride team, which was run by an Aussie guy or something. I forgot. Maybe I'm right or wrong.
You are right. Yeah. That's a good memory.
I forgot his name, but maybe I'll remember. You know it.
I actually, I think it was Neil, but now you're testing my memory too. But yeah.
Okay. So I met him and he's like, so you were 16, I believe, in 2002 in the winter.
Nope, I was younger. I joined the freeride team. I quit racing at 14. And so Phil and Sarah coached me at like 14, 15, and I got sponsored. And then.
So he was like the dopest kid. There was a handful of kids on this team and that were like above and beyond, like weird, unique, different than each other. It wasn't like a style. So you had like a Willie who would just fucking boost in the pipe. You got Rory, who was like the most wild style you ever seen, but did shit no one else could do. And you're like, what the fuck? And then would live when he crashed. Then the Chris, why he stuck out was he was the smoothest of them all. And then he like had like a style. So I don't know where you like picked it up on but we got to go back on his skiing because of who his influences were, because I know what the answers will be. Like for when he came on the scene, he was steezy right away. He figured out by 15, I should wear all white. Like I'm going to have a face mask because that's dope looking. I'm going to fucking do-rag my shit and hang out a fucking dangler out the back. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm young. I want to mimic and I want to be better. So it was just like this crazy sponge. And you just got to watch him absorb shit, learn shit. Bellinger, I remember coming back one day, and I told you this before the show, like when you learned a cork 7 from him, I think, or something like this.
Yeah.
And maybe it was the reverse tail or just the cork 7, I don't know, the access. But it was like such a dope deal. It was like, yo, this kid, Chris Benchetler, learned this today. We're like, woo, let's smoke weed. But so, yeah, my first impression, and then I hung out with his brother pretty much every day that year. His brother would stop by and just smoke with me after skiing with about 50 other people. And so, yeah. But let's rewind. Let's get back to weekend warrior shit growing up, because now you're like, that's a 40-minute drive. Your parents are bringing you. You're experiencing. I get it. That's why you live in mountains. But are you in a race program, or how do you get involved more than recreational?
Yeah, it started with race. So my dad, we sold the horses. I was probably age 4, and he got back into skiing. And then I guess I just showed a deep desire for it. And then he had a rule that we had to be able to be better or beat him down the mountain before we could try snowboarding. And then he caved for my brother, and John Jackson and my brother were best friends. And so that was my very young influence, was Matt Hammer and John Jackson and my brother, obviously. And then
put this in perspective, John Jackson is one of the best snowboarders to ever live.
Yes.
Oh, the community he's about to grow up in is not normal.
Matt Hammer was not bad either. They would open and close every standard film for years. But so those two influences were extremely heavy on my desire to get out of racing. But I raced for only 2 years, I think. But essentially, if I remember the story correct, we used to have the NASTAR, or the pay course, and I was just paid to race a buddy. And the coach at the time came up to my dad and said, he's like, hey, your son is pretty good. He should join the race team. And at that point in time, they had never let someone outside of Mammoth join the race team. And now it's like more LA kids than Mammoth kids.
Okay. Crazy. So it was an actual city team back then.
Yeah. I was like the first. Yeah. I was the first out of towner. And then right around that time, my dad got sick when I was 14. So right when he got sick is when I kind of quit racing and met yourself and Pep. Pep was a huge influence once I was raised by the snowboard culture. And then once I met Pep, and I've known Rory and Willie forever too, obviously, but once I got off the race team, that's when.
Well, let's talk 2000, right? So 2000, if we're looking at that 24 years ago, and you said so 30. What is you 14?
I was born in 86, so yeah, it would have been 14.
So Gravity Games. Like, so I'm just thinking Gravity Games was my first Mammoth experience.
Candide was on that ski behind you there, that Dina Star. I feel like I remember Candide and Gravity.
No, maybe that was the first time he ever wore them, was that event.
Yeah, I feel like it.
Could you give a little background on Gravity Games Iberg for the new heads?
So Gravity Games was this, X Games was around for a couple of years at this point, Winter X Games, and NBC wanted something to compete with ABC for an extreme sports event. So they're like, we're going to create fucking Gravity Games. But so it's big mountain, ski for sure. I don't know if they had snowboarding. That was fucking nuts. Guerlain Chicheri won. Then they had big air. Pretty much over half the field went to an ambulance. And it was the biggest cheese wedge false air you've ever fucking seen. Like, I saw the gnarliest crashes of my life. So that was skiing and snowboarding. I don't know if they had ski across. I think they did.
I remember the big air. And they had that huge inflatable moon. And I was like,
that was the light.
Yeah, exactly.
But so what it was like $30,000, man. It was on NBC, and it was mostly I didn't even see the big mountain. I just remember everyone's like, dude, Guerlain Chicheri bit through his tongue after he dropped the 80-footer, after he dropped the 100-footer, and then dropped another 60-footer and won. There's blood all over the course. Yeah. And dude, this guy like flies in private helicopters with fur coats on, right? So skiing was big, and he was bigger than skiing. And so he was like a male model that would win everything in 2000. And so I worked with Dina Star. That's the only reason I know so much. Like why all the French people loved him. Like if he was God, more than Candide. And so, yeah, the big air was nuts, man. Like you can type in some Gravity Game, but it was a cheese wedge, 3 semi-trucks wide. And then it was all false air, right? So it was like this thing that shot you like to the fucking moon. And then you just dropped. I shot it from straight on the whole night. I never seen nothing like it. Then we spent the rest of the time in hospitals. Like Rory, his intro to the ski world was Rory landed on his face because he got a 4-run. He was like, "Are you guys the same age?"
No, he's a couple of years older.
So like, yeah, Roy's never been introduced to the ski world yet. They're like, "Hey, local kid, you want to do this?" Ripped up his whole face, so he gets a Powder magazine shot with like face falling off as his intro to the thing as a kid. Like. Yeah. I saw Brad Holmes, who's my childhood idol, get knocked unconscious over rotating a Misty flip, like dropping from 60 feet straight down to his face. Like I went with Dion, like dislocated his shoulder. Like it just was nonstop. So Gravity Games was ill as fuck. NBC, $30,000 first place, 20,000 for second, 15 for third, and they paid out. It was epic.
That sounds so sick.
Good memory. So point being is, this year you're so young. And this is the most influential year, right? Like for me in skiing, I can only imagine then 2000. And then when I rode up that high-speed quad, all of a sudden every single movie star in the snowboard world that I never saw in my life was under the chairlift. Every single ski star, I was like, this is fun. And then when I moved there the next year, it was that times a million.
Yeah.
Right? Like kids own the town. Never before. It's a town of like 3,000 people, and maybe 1,200 of them were under 18 years old and all got paychecks. It was the most fucked up time to be alive. So I'm wondering, you're a youth, like I can't imagine, very few people, only you and your generation that lived in Mammoth ever was the epicenter of the birthplace of our sport, skiing and snowboarding in 2000.
Yeah.
Shit was an odd world.
I don't have your perspective because I was so young and immersed in it, but it's interesting to hear you say that because it is pretty darn accurate. And I mean, we were the first terrain park that allowed both skiers and snowboarders, and the size of the jumps were so much above and beyond any other resort globally. So it was the epicenter. You're right.
Why didn't you get into snowboarding? If your older brother was into snowboarding, you had John Jackson and Eric Jackson and fucking like.
I was probably real close because I was skateboarding all the time too, and so it was because of the ski racing and because of that little shift. And right in that early 2000, when my brother switched, all of what you're saying was happening, and Twin Tips came on the scene, and so now I had Rory doing switch sevens in front of me. I'm like, oh, whoa, you can ski backwards on skis. This is cool. So it's just like opened my mind to possibilities and what was capable. And I love being in the mountains. And so it didn't really matter to me what tool I was on. I just wanted to be there. And then the fact that we skiers could be in the terrain park doing similar things, it would just made sense to keep skiing. I think had twin tips not existed and I was still racing, I would have for sure switched to snowboarding, but it was just that perfect era.
So do you I know you were on the freestyle team there, free ride team as they called it, I think. But like, did you compete right away when the first year you got into twin tip skiing? Like, was it like go time? Let's go to the US Open? Because what else was there in 2000?
Yeah. It was 2 years. It was, you remember Chris Booth, I presume, because we had everyone, Euros, Aussie, like Candide.
Yeah, he stayed at my house for like 2 months. I just sent him as a 14-year-old. My roommate was like, why'd you send a 14-year-old kid here from Australia? I'm like, he's cool, man. He's like, well, his dad dropped him off, so I feel kind of okay with this.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it was everyone. I used to ski park with yourself and Phil and Sarah and Candy. Everyone came early season. Yoon was here, Tanner was here, Pep was here. And so I guess now I'm getting distracted. Remind me what you just asked me.
I was kind of saying, how do you, because I'm super interested. We're learning about how kids get involved in it. Some kids don't do contests. So I'm interested, like, you're in it because all of a sudden it's like, bam, you're a little kid. You try this sport out.
You ask competition.
You get like sponsored in your first year. So I'm like, what the fuck do you do when all of a sudden you like it? You live in the middle of nowhere and there's no contests. Yeah. So how do you actually get involved in the sport more than just Mammoth Mountain? And
so Pep played a huge role in my K2 sponsorship. He vouched for me, and then I went up to Tahoe for X Games qualifier, and Mike Goot was there, and I won my heat going into finals, and then I choked in finals, but I did well as like the 14-year-old, 15-year-old whenever he sponsored me. I think I was 14. And it all happened so fast, like you're saying.
How does Pep vouch for you? Because I get like this time in the era when someone's like, same way Pep got on Oakley, right? Yeah. We're all Mammoth, and it's like everyone's telling Strokes like, yo, put him on. And then Strokes like, word, you're on. You know, that's how fast it happens. And so like what, like, because I know why Pep got on Oakley, but like what were you doing like with Pep at that time? Because I didn't even know you shredded with him at this time.
No clue. I mean, I just met him. I skied the park. Those laps are 8-minute laps, and you do 1,000 of them. And I was just maybe progressing fast, or maybe it's not too annoying as a little 14-year-old. I don't know what it was, really.
It's crazy to me because the year Belan and Sarah were your coach was 0102. Yeah. Now you say Pep, who's the best skier in the world, 03, is plain vouching for you.
Yeah.
Like, yo, I'm the illest fucking motherfucker out there. So pretty much whatever Pep says after 1242 goes, and that's when I believe he co-signs you, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was earlier. It was 02 he got me on. It was right when he was blowing up, when 1242 was about to be the biggest thing.
I'm just saying, like in 2002, he was still on vocal when he came to Mammoth.
Yeah.
So then he just got K2, and then like he became the man within less than a year being on the product.
Yeah, and it was all around the same time. And I think just being in the epicenter, skiing however I skied, like you said, a bit differently than my peers, and I just stood out for whatever reason. So I had Pep's support, and then they held Super Park, that I want to say it was that 2002 year when Phil was still my coach, and there was the top step down, and most people would not hit it except myself and Rory, and maybe one
Bushfield broke his leg. Another, I think McMurray broke his neck or something. Like, yo, that what took. I'd never seen more hospital rides. I almost wanted to quit skiing because of that jump, and I don't even ski. I just wanted to go away, go home.
Yeah, it was the year Candide went straight over the hip, but it was that there was a session. I might have even guineaed the jump trying to make my mark, and I did. I learned a cork 7 from Phil that year, and I did it on that 100-something foot jump. And so then I got sponsored by Dragon at that same time, and I got the free K2 skis earlier that year. Then the Super Park happened in the spring, and I just kept running with it, basically.
When you're a 14-year-old and you get like co-signed by Pep to a K2, Dragon sees you at Super Park, do people come with product, or do they give little kids money at this time in the sport?
Oh no, I signed my K2 contract for free skis. I mean, my father was dying. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like,
and
sure, I'll sign whatever.
How long did they make a kid sign a contract for free product back then? Would it be a 1 year, or is it like multiple years? How does it work?
I'm sure Goot was pretty intelligent. He probably tried to take advantage of the situation. I might have been
they put the name Pettit on the junior ski, right? And it wasn't a full month.
Yeah.
So they were sneaky.
Yeah, they were sneaky.
He even got paid at the time.
So yeah, money was not even in my periphery. I had zero concern about making a living, and free skis seemed like the greatest thing on the planet.
So if you get sponsored as a youth and you don't have to win and you haven't put out a film segment, what is your dream now as all of a sudden someone with opportunity, but that didn't accomplish a set goal necessarily, because you're like, this sport's fun. I'm really good. People give me shit. Bam.
Yeah. It just, I don't know if I have a good answer for that. I mean, it all happened so fast. By the time I was 16 going on 17, because I'm a November baby. So I start the season, early season, as 16, turning 17. I started filming, or I met Johnny, however I met Johnny, and Tyler Hamlet, who I'm still working with today. He went to Steamboat with Pep, so they were buddies. They were filming Pep for stuff, and they said if I got a snowmobile, I could come film with them. So I bought a snowmobile. My mom co-signed, loaned me the money, if I remember correctly, bought a snowmobile. And then I was still living with my mom. Went to Cook City with Peter Olenek. I want to say Vinny and JF may have even been there. It was kind of everyone, and I just crashed the entire time. But I was given the opportunity to film right away. So competition, I had zero interest in competition. I've never been a competitive person. So you're talking about 2005, I believe, the snowmobile year at Cook City. I think it was 04, because it's 05 was War 05.
04, Pep got injured because I was making dub ski and he was supposed to be in it. So
but if 05 is War, I had a full segment by that time, so I had learned how to land and powder. So it was before that. It was
because you had 1242. Then Pep came with me, and I lived with him and Tanner in 2003-04, and we made dub ski. And then it was Pop Your Bottles and whatever the movie that was. And it wasn't War, because War was the next year, because War was 2006, because Shane Nelson helped on the edit on that one. Mm-hmm. So whatever the fuck 2005 Poor Boys Productions movie is, I think you're talking about. But my question is, like, you have 2 years of kind of growing with sponsors.
Yeah. I was going to say, when I was 17, I got MVP. They did Parkosaurus at June, and I broke my femur. Lonnie Kauk and I once again, guineaed. The only person to jump over that hip was me and Lonnie. And I hit it switch, broke my femur. But that was the same year I couldn't land in powder that I bought the sled. So that I didn't have a segment.
That was 2004 then, but Pep was with me that whole winter. So that's why I'm curious.
Yeah, and Pep showed up at Parkosaurus and offered me Vicodin or a joint because he was recovering from an injury. You're right.
That was the only time I ever got threatened to be murdered. Rock said he was going to kill me because I didn't pass him the doobie. I've never been threatened to be murdered.
There you go.
Memory of that Parkosaurus.
And Chompy was there, the goat.
Fuck yeah, dude.
The actual goat, not the greatest of all time, but
But Chompy was the earlier one. That was 2002 because I lived because I was making Stereotype, and then the Grenade Crew had the house in June.
Yep. And Chompy was surrounded by coyotes in the crate in the back. But so that is all when it happened. So I was filming, I got a sled, and I broke my femur all in that whatever 04 season, 03, 04. But before that, I was, because of Goot and K2 and Dragon, I went to the first Parkosaurus down at Big Bear with the huge inflatable dinosaur, and that's where Chompy was acquired.
I forgot about that. He had 2 years under his belt.
Yeah, so
Chompy was a goat that Omar Ote and the Booze Boys would bring, and Tuffelmeyer would bring to events. Yeah, and it had like a gold chain, would get its own thing, and had diapers, and if it didn't, it'd be poop all out. It was awesome.
It was so awesome. So yeah, I mean my time frame is all skewed. But to answer your question about competition, I was similarly to how I am now. I was just finding opportunity and working my ass off to weasel myself into whatever I could, whether that was filming or Parkosauruses or this or that, and just looking for a moment to build something, because I loved skiing as much as anything. So
we're even having goals, or are we just like, no way, I'm a kid and I get to travel and do shoots?
I still don't have goals, and my wife gets mad at me all the time that I never know what I'm doing and don't write things down. Without having any formal training, I live very presently, and I think it's just because I have so much shit happening in my head that I kind of just.
I'm gonna kind of disagree with you, because I'll guess I'm kind of similar, but like, you have a goal, there might be a phone call that you're producing something and you have to finish it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's like
I have follow through. I have follow through.
Yeah, but you had to make a goal. Like, it's your vision. You didn't have You didn't make someone else's movie called Fire in the Mountain. I'm pretty sure it's your movie, unless you're going to give TGR all the credit.
Not going to do that. But
okay. So it sounds like you got goals, dog.
Yeah, they just put it on their website. But it's different, I guess. I certainly have goals in that sense, but it's all happening in real time, and I pull on threads of opportunity and look for. I don't have a set. Even with this new project, like, I just ended up in the Sphere. That was never on my radar, but once that opportunity came and I started having conversations, it's like I diverted the entire thing to go to that. So
that's fun.
Yeah, it just kind of adapt and change, and follow through is certainly my number one trait, I would say, of succeeding.
Jump in here, Ethan.
I'm so interested about the recent stuff that I don't want to jump ahead into the timeline too much.
I know, but just hold back, man.
I'm holding back.
Stuff is the only reason he can create this recent shit.
Yes. So this is actually interesting, because I think that Chris might be one of the first of like kind of this, like the second generation of the skiers. Like, he wasn't a mogul kid. He saw you guys, the first generation, and you guys were the older kids. So I think that's a really interesting angle of this. Like, Chris, what were you thinking of all these guys when you met them? Like, what'd you think of what was your first impression of Iberg when you met him?
I think the entire crew he surrounded himself with were bigger than life. I remember my most fond memory of you, Iberg, was playing Edward 40 Hands together when I was however young. I must have been 15.
My first show without 40s.
Yep, old Mickeys. We were duct taping Mickeys to our hands, and I was way too young to be doing that, but here I was. I
was 21. I was 21, so people know my age and the situation.
Yep. Yeah. So they were just they were the
Wait,
episode.
one more fact on that one. There was a young youth named Sammy that was only 9 years old that taught me Edward 40 Hands when I came to Gravity Games. No little Sammy.
Lubke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He turned out to be a great snowboarder.
He turned out to be a great snowboarder.
Sorry.
So it's interesting because I guess I am the second generation, but I'm actually not, because I met them when Tanner was doing 360 ball grabs and his backflip iron crosses on the step downs at Mammoth. So he wasn't quite Tanner Hall yet. He was finding his own self. Same with Pep. Pep had a tongue ring and bleached hair and on vocal skis, and like these guys were not what they are today by any means. So I was just the young kid.
You were the young side of the first generation. That makes sense.
Yeah, because think about it. We're talking 2000, and it's 2024. He's still here, so it's like, first generation realistically.
Yeah,
because I mean, dude, like him and Rory are getting sponsors. 2000, like Rory got sponsored at Gravity Games for just being there. Like, here we go, buddy. No way. Like, we got a youth ski. Like, you're sponsored by K2, Bolay. Woo! Like everything. He's like young as shit. Yeah. So I don't know. I do. That's like if Rory was still here. You know, like it's the same thing. And Rory, I look at as someone there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so same thing. I look at Chris, where it's like we just said how fast it happens.
Yeah.
But the funnest part about the show is to show how long it takes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like none of that shit was like goal orientated, other than like make the most of your opportunity. And that's why I keep focusing on his past, because it's just like, okay, you make the most of your opportunity. You don't know what direction that brings you, just like you just said. So that's kind of why I want to pick the brain on that, because he had an opportunity for so long. In this part, what we'll get into with the Nimbus and all this, it's like, well, where did that bring him? I don't fucking know. That's what I want to find out, Chris.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think this conversation is making me think a bit deeper, because I get asked by youth a lot, like, how do I get sponsored? How do I do this? But I think, unfortunately, because our sport has become what it has become, there's immediate expectation on those young kids' parents or whatever that they need to be getting paid. They need the agent. They need this. Whereas I had very supportive parents, but I did not expect to be sitting here 24 years later. I was, like I said, pulling on these threads of opportunity and trying to create my own existence because I truly loved and was passionate about something. So it's different now for sure.
So you're starting to film with Poor Boys. What was your first segment? Do you know what movie you were in your life?
Well, I've
written like something. You were like in Groms maybe, or like some weird.
I was in things because when I first met Pollard, the all white kit up on Hood, we hit a step up together, and I was in the credits of an MSP movie, hitting a step up with him. I did like an underflip 5 on something on Hood. Him and Aaron were camped out up there, and I came up to Hood, and instead of riding the park with everyone else, I had an opportunity to go in the backcountry with Pollard. And so that would have been around age 15. And then I think 10, we'll have to look up, must have been the movie I broke my femur. But I want to say I had shots in that movie from a couple from Cook City and some from Parkosaurus maybe, but I don't recall.
What was your first segment where you were like, hell yeah? Did you ever have
War was the first one I was probably happy with, like put in the effort and filmed for the season. And I want to say it might have been the same time I was in MSP actually, was War. I had a closing segment in MSP. I went to Austria for I was first time overseas, and I went with Bushy and McMurray. And
seems like you'd fit their style totally.
That's fantastic. And Riley Poor was our filmer. It was amazing. Unless I'm mixing things up, he was my filmer at some point. But also Gabe LaRue came with us, who ended up filming for Burton forever. So I haven't seen those movies in so fucking long. I don't remember the time frame, but whatever year I kind of had war in the MSP segment, and I started landing in POW, and I started then the whole rocker situation. We started prototyping with K2, and once that came onto the scene, it was all over.
So here's where we're at. You're talking 2006 because it was the year before Idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember now the ski stuff and where you were at.
Ski porn was 2006, so I had a segment there too. That was my first time to Alaska. Born out
2005.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because ski porn was Bornowski got buried. JP, that was my first Alaska trip. JP, we should probably backtrack. He was a massive influence.
Yeah, let's talk about JP.
My little bird up there.
Got the bird.
Got that dude every day. Because he was my first trip to Canada. We were on Sublux together, which would have been all of this shit is happening same time period. Maybe that
Sublux was a lifestyle clothing brand, Ethan. That was started by, I believe, a filmer for Poor Boys named Cody.
Yeah, Cody, yep. And I was driving the Sea to Sky Highway with JP in the car, and he told me it was the ocean, and it blew my mind because I had never left the country at that point, and I was just this little small town kid, and so I was staring out the window hoping I was going to see Free Willy the whole time. I just thought it was a bunch of lakes. I was like, what lakes are these? He's like, you idiot, it's the ocean. But that was just my and JP's relationship where he just kept educating me on life. And then first time to Japan was with him. First time to Alaska was that ski porn year. And that was the worst avalanche cycle in the history of avalanche cycles. And Absinthe was up there. Everyone was kicking shit off. And yeah, Bornowski kind of went sideways after that. He got buried up to his head, and there was a lot going on. But JP was extremely influential and just taking me under his wing and kind of helping me navigate.
How do you end up with JP? Because he's not similar sponsor. Is it only?
I think Sublux was just a trip, and then I met him, and we had some synergy, and we became very good friends. I think he appreciated how little I cared about responsibility and how much I liked to play climbing and surfing and skiing and doing all the things. So we had a good
nerdy, active, creative. So I know who you are now since you melt with him.
Yes. And now that we say that, there was what really sealed our bond was New Zealand. He had bit a bouncer. He was getting choked, bit a bouncer, had a full court date in New Zealand. And this was not JP's style at all. And he was so embarrassed and just over Wanaka that him and I got in his car. Kitty is that old Volkswagen Jetta that had no heater. And we went down to the southeast coast of New Zealand. And that was like my introduction to surfing, pretty much.
Waiting for his court date.
Waiting for his court date, or at least to get released. He had the whole town of Wanaka writing letters that he was a good person, didn't need to go to court and all the things. So that was when JP and I became super close, because we going back, it's like I'm supposed to be in New Zealand to ski, but instead this guy asked me to go to the coast with him. I'm like, okay. So I don't know, just make decisions based off of feeling and relationships. And
he's a special individual. It'd be an easy thing to say yes to if he asks you, not because you're like wide-eyed that he's you're just like, yeah, you're really fun. Yeah, why wouldn't I?
That's good. Let's go to the coast. Get chased by huge sea lions. Yep. So
movies. So I mean, JP was super into editing, right? Mm-hmm. And so I got kind of his path. I knew, and so now all of a sudden you're in these movies. Like, do you have a vision while you're in movies, or are you still just taking opportunity to learn how to ski in cool places with other fun people? Or do you start to get kind of a vision yet that you're like, I want to make a segment like this, or
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, I certainly had a vision, but I was always with people I respected so much, and they were so like-minded that I wasn't about to. I see skiing and films, and the filmer and the skier is an equal collaboration. Like, you have a vision for idea, Pollard has a vision for idea. Without the two of you bouncing your ideas off each other, it doesn't become what it was. So,
but the difference is I'm not a skier, right? So
yeah.
I understand with JP, it's more of a mentor. When you're with Pollard, it's a mentor. And then it's like you get to spread your wings and then all of a sudden be like, yeah, thanks, creatives. I'm going to go fucking do ill shit too.
Yeah. Well, and I was always interested in doing it on my own, but never to the point that I was going to give up what I was creating with them, and never to the point, like, Pollard and I talked every year about me coming out to help him edit and stuff. But at some point, it was just the amount of conversations and ideas I was throwing at him. However he wanted to implement those was okay by me, because we were two like-minded artists. So it always existed, but I was more open to not creating an ownership over the identity of that, and just focusing on how I saw the mountain and using the mountain as my form of art, really. So whether it was turning or jumping or spinning or grabs or whatever, it was just focused on that side.
So late 2000s, filmed with all the major companies. Like, you're now with Nimbus. Like, are you making a living at this point? Like, are you a professional skier, meaning can you pay rent and feed yourself and accomplish what your job is?
I did things, yes, by Nimbus time, I would say yes, but also no. I am a hustler by nature, in the sense that I work my ass off to find these opportunities and make my life what it is today. And so the Siriannis, I'm sure you remember old Christian, big smile himself. Him and his two sisters were living in Mammoth, met them with Booth. They rented a place every 6 months. So right around the time of idea, my grandmother had passed away, and my mom's house is very small. I'm sure you remember it. She lives 2 streets away from me here, but she inherited all this furniture, and I was living with my mom, so I was not paying rent up until 2007. I was just saving my money, buying a snowmobile, paying for travel, doing whatever, not making a ton as a skier by any means. And then my grandmother passed. She got a ton of furniture and everything, like down to cutlery, pens, pencils, cups, everything. And we were like, I was with Kimmy since 2003, which is my wife today. So met her very young, as you know, old Kimmy Gibler. That's her. And my brother was snowboarding. He had his girlfriend, and then the 3 Sirianni siblings needed a place to live. So in 2007, we bought a house. With the Siriannis paid us their rent up front so we could afford it. We lied to the why am I spacing when you need a loan, the name of that, the broker or whatever, to get a loan. We lied about what we made. We were like the classic why the market crashed in 2008. Like, we made not enough money to be buying a house, but we just went for it, bought a place, took all my grandmother's furniture and moved it in. And it's this house that I live in today still. So, and we bought it with my brother, myself, and then my brother's girlfriend, Kimmy. So the 3 of us all went in together, and we just made it work. We had 12 people living here for a very long time. It was like Pep. Everyone stayed here. And before that, everyone lived with my mom. Abma and Bornowski would come every early season to ride park, sleep on my mom's floor. Pep was sleeping on my mom's floor. Everyone just was part of my life. And so when I had a house big enough to house everyone, it was just everyone kind of chipped in to make it happen. And then around the end of '07, after Idea, Jordan Judd approached me and asked me what it would take to leave K2, and that was my opportunity to spread my wings a bit.
But this was my next item, because I believe this is the game changer for me, that I saw you from afar.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you were a genius, because in my head, I already saw what happened with Sean Pettit. They put his name on a ski and didn't call it a junior ski. I saw Pep have the highest selling pro model ski of all time at $299. And the next year they dropped the Silencer, same ski, all black, top sheet, one's $279, $20 cheaper. Pretty much just eliminate his thing. And so I'm like, I watched all this. And so when I saw you do your shit, and it was pretty wild, because this time period, you know, like Armada had some patent on ski shape or something. The ski world was going wild. It's too niche of a industry to flex your patent and sue all other businesses that are most likely going bankrupt every 10 years anyways.
Yeah.
And so when I saw you do your move right after Idea, like, I was just like, fuck, man. And then like the whole idea, it's like Hellbent, the most dopest ski that everyone still wishes came back. So you took the Bent name, and then you fucking put your own name on it so they could never get rid of it. And I was just like, yo, it's like how Forefront Skis still makes an MSP Pro. Matt Sturbin's Pro is the MSP, right? He has the oldest running pro model. He don't even own that company no more. No. So, I mean, as if you ever got dropped, they'll still have the Bent Chetler unless you have the trademark and you can sue them or make a license. So can you tell us that story? Is it just you're on K2? I'm guessing you're not a highly paid guy at this point with the team they had in 2007?
Yeah, I was not a highly paid K2 athlete, but I felt like family, so it was not an easy choice. I mean, it was Andy, Pep, myself, Seth, Pettit, who else am I missing? We had the team of teams.
Dope ass motherfuckers. McConkey.
And yeah, McConkey and the Hellbent. So the year I switched, because that time the Hellbent wasn't available to the public. That was still just like its first time to shine, that year of Idea. And so, yeah, Rockard skis changed our world. But first we had it on the AK Maiden. We had a Rockard AK Maiden the year of ski porn. And so that's when Andy Mahre had that closing segment with Jefferson Airplane. That's still one of my favorite segments.
The 180 over Pyramid Gap.
Yeah, exactly. And all the shit. And so Rocker was clearly the next thing, and you make it sound like I had this very strategic plan for my long day.
I know you didn't. I'm saying how dope it is.
Yeah, I know it's interesting because I was approached by Atomic, and they were absolutely nothing, and it wasn't. Every decision I've made in my life has never been about money, which is a strange thing to say because money, we all need it to live and make the world go round. But I almost didn't go to Atomic just simply because of where their image was, and they were offering me a lot more than K2. But I just said, I was like, if you can give me creative control and let me, design the shape, let me design everything, graphics, all of it, then I'll do it. And like, if we could do this together and have a bit more creative license as to what I'm skiing on and what I'm doing. Because as you said, I wasn't about to be getting a pro model with Pep, Andy, Seth, Pettit, all of these people. It was not in my future.
No, they're trying to eliminate pro models at that time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, opportunity. And I took it for the actual development and design of the ski. And that was the best decision.
So year one, you got a pro model going to Atomic.
Yeah, I had the prototype in the year of hunting Yeti, the first, because I broke. So we did Idea. I was on K2.
Yeah.
And then that year, I think I was a bit distracted. I wish I hung out with you guys more, but I was just young and trying to make the right decision. So Pettit and I did a Warren Miller segment that year, and then I had closer of Poor Boys that year too. So I was pretty focused. What's that?
Worked out for you to do whatever you did.
It did. But then Idea was so spectacular, and Pollard and I had so much synergy. It's like we gotta keep this train rolling, and I was like, sounds good to me. So that was the birth of Nimbus, and my ski was in conjunction with all of that. So
it's no genius, man. Like there's a hype, and then like there's no competition. Like Atomic had the thing. I was bugged out because they had a lot of good fucking skiers on Atomic, and they had some big mountain people that could have like took that trendy new fucking reverse camber and put their name on it. I forget who it was, but it's a decent amount of guys were on Atomic.
Yeah, I mean, Jossie, like Darren Rolfs, there's still people that are here today. Jossie and Darren are probably the only two left during that time. But
it's crazy to find a ski, right, that you can last forever. Think about it. Tanner, the T-Hull, like only lasted so long as a park ski. Then he had to go over to the Magic J as a pity ski pro model. And now we don't even have nothing, right? So to have a pro model stay in a category for as long as you've had it now, I think 15 years plus, is pretty crazy. And it's so funny because it was so obvious. Like K2 could have just had a Hellbent with the cool skull graphics for 15 straight years and dominated the market. But they were trying to make something weird and different every year and then eliminate certain things. And you're just like, yo, Benchetler for life. You know, everyone's like, I wish there was a Hellbent. And you're like, yeah, but there's a Benchetler. So I don't know. I just really was impressed. And as you said, it wasn't a calculated move, but that move allows maybe some longer time where you get to work with a company, because why would they ever, if you search engine Chetler, there's probably 40 million plus searches with 13 years worth of product and over $100 million of investment of physical product design and delivered. You don't want to get rid of that to a name, and it's your name on it. So it's a good move when trying to, and then your thing of why it even worked is because you didn't ask for money or that move. You asked to try to collaborate and build something together. So that's why it happened organically. So the point of the show is this: learn from that, because if you really do want to create, creating is more important than getting paid, because if you create dope shit, then maybe 10, 15 years later, I mean, I'm still on the search. I'm like at 26 years. I'm in the garage.
You're awesome. No,
but at the time, why wouldn't we do this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we talk to old heads and new heads about the awesome sport of fucking skiing?
It's pretty fantastic. And I think that is an important message for the new heads, is just have your priorities as your North Star as best as you can. And if you're in it for the right reasons, all of those doors of opportunity will open. And I've made it. I have a very successful life financially and physically, emotionally. I'm very, very pleased with the decisions I've made, for sure. And there's been hard times, certainly.
Let's make sure everyone always knows there's hard times. And even when you wish you had the success of someone else, you probably wouldn't like to have the hard times that person has. Yeah. And that's what I learned about everyone who that I don't have envy for, but I say, wow, they fucking killed it. And then you know the story, and you're like, I don't know if I'd ever want that, just to kill it. Cool with my garage.
I think we're all just our little molecular structure where you can only handle, people can only handle what they can handle, and it takes that perfect blend of everything to be able to stay the course through all the trials and tribulations. There's a lot.
But the hard stuff makes you try harder.
Yeah, it does.
You know, like whether it's in personal relationship or a business thing, like if something sucks and you're waiting for this call now another week and you're like, this fucking sucks, I can't do my timeline. Like in my production, like I've been trying to get a song for 2.5 fucking months. Whole timeline's fucked. budget got changed. Where's my goddamn verse? And I'm just like, everything's fucked. But I got to just try harder when I do get the verse.
Yeah.
I got a question to kind of enhance this as well. So,
you're still here. Thanks.
Yes. I'm just letting you guys let the old heads
really chatting it up here.
So you said that Atomic. I just want to highlight the fact that like how impressive it is that it wasn't solely a money move, because you said they were willing to offer you a lot more. Like, were they like going to pay you double? Like, how much of a pay increase are we talking that still wasn't enough for you to be like, oh, I'm fully on board just from money alone?
It was probably more than double. I did not make a lot of money from K2. It was like a decent way to start making a living. And
do you mind saying, because I think what's fun is like people, because there's no players association in our sport. Everyone's an artist. Yeah. So there's no way realistically, like, so whatever you say you make, you should never compare yourself to you. Yeah. Because it's like, if you're like, oh, that artist made so much. And then this, well, it's different reasons. So like, but at the same time, kids say the younger generation maybe have assumptions. Mm-hmm. And so, especially when they like always assume life was awesome. So we've just explained how pretty much your first 10 years, you didn't make shit.
Yeah.
You know, and we're talking 10 fucking years of fucking grinding, getting injured, putting out segments. And so like after this, like 2008, like what is like a ski sponsorship look like in that time period of the sport?
That's a good question, because I had like a royalty structure built in that I didn't know if my ski was going to sell and all of
but this. It did.
But it did sell. You're right. I want to say it's probably similar to today, like a $30,000 to $40,000 annual contract.
You think that's similar today? That's like a boss of today. Yeah. That's like Tanner Hall shit today.
Yeah, that was a big deal. And I imagine today that would still be a big deal for a skier if you could get
big deal. If they were and just filmed with a segment or two, mm-hmm. It's not even comprehensible. Maybe unless you did 365 days of posts, mm-hmm. did some funky dance on TikTok, and then like did something weird, then maybe you could make that.
It's interesting too, though, because that's funny, this whole social media thing, because I think I cracked the code there too I don't know when that was. It was the year we were having our second child. I did just like this little one line that I used to do at Mammoth all the time, just through Dry Creek. And that thing went as viral as anything would ever go. I think it was 200 million views and on Good Morning America and all this shit just for a GoPro POV. Changed my life, not even the slightest. There was no like bonus, like you did it, you got all the views in the world. It was like nothing changed. So I laugh because I think the social media guy at GoPro got a raise or got a bonus, and like all of these things happened for the people posting it, because at TikTok it got 90 million views, and then
the brand GoPro got the love.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean? So that's what won.
But it's funny because it's just like everyone's so hungry, and I get trapped in that too with sponsors. They're like, you need to post, you need to do this, but then when you do it, like 200 million views should hold me over for the next, that's like 20 million views for the next 10 years, you know? It's just like,
think about musical artists, like really think like if we were in music world, right?
Yeah.
And they dreamed of this number, like they really think that means they make it.
Yeah. But
right? It's even worse for them than it is for ski athletes, because it's so unrealistic, these numbers, where how it doesn't really affect the payout of views or opportunity that comes. Yeah. Because the only way it comes is if Chris owned GoPro and he understood that was marketing for his brand.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, it's fun to watch from afar, but it's a good point. And I think the other point is it's being authentic, you know? Mm-hmm. There's a reason why. Like, I mean, an Instagram model already lost her job to an AI model because they look the same now.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just like whoever gets the most comments, whoever bought the most bots. So it's not even a real. And then Facebook died, what, 5-6 years ago? So every social platform's already died. Like I spend more time like telling people to build their own video player and have the 1,000 people that love your art be able to go and experience it and not pull a bunch of people that don't give a fuck. As if you have an authentic audience, man, they love you more than anything. They market you, they promote you, they fucking pat you on the back when times are down, and you keep going. So, because that's what the biggest part about you on the show is the length of your career. And to me, it's not even started. Yeah. And be able to ski in movies because of your creative outlets and your collaborations and your visual art that you put out there, rather than trying to add a 180 or a flip next year. Go. Yeah. Just stay healthy, my friend. Stay healthy.
Yes. Good. It's far more at this point, far more than the skiing. my career has blossomed into many roles. So,
but the point is, we talk to you because like there's someone's watching skiing in Las Vegas today because of you, right? So I mean, it's still like that's the whole point of like, and everything, that opportunity that you have in life comes from doing tricks on snow skis and so it's really, that's the common denominator of every single person we'll talk to. And it's about the experiences that you get, the opportunities you get, because the opportunities in this luxury sport and the people that you meet are limitless. And it's what people dream of when wanting to create is meet these kind of people, go these kind of places. Create. It's like, it's not just something that like we get to do and should take for granted, because it's really, really special, I think, especially me sitting in Minnesota now, talking about skiing with skiers all over the world every day from 6 a.m. till midnight. You know, like there's a reason what the sport does. And it's like, dude, I'm not even doing the sport, but I'm talking about it every day. Creating dope-ass products, events, working on a video game because of skiing. It's a ski video game, but none of the business or the back end really is skiing. It's fucking cocaine and weird shit. Yeah. I don't know. Just want to say that with you. But Ethan.
Well, I just think it's so impressive. Like, it's I forget what principle it is, but like the less you try to follow something, the more it comes to you. Like you went to Atomic. I mean, most people, I think say you're getting paid $10,000 by K2, and then Atomic's like, hey, we'll give you 35 in a year or whatever. Most people would be like, dude, you can put me on the wackest skis of all time, I will go. But you're like, nah, I'm not doing it unless there's this creative side of it where I think it'll actually progress my career other than monetarily. And because of that, you got even more money from it because you have an authentic product that you're getting royalties off of. So it's just, I think that's like the best lesson in all of this. Like, and I'm just echoing basically what's already been said. If all you're in it for is the money, that's the last thing that you're going to get.
Generally speaking, yes, you want your priorities in the right place, and there is opportunity out there, and it can be a very it can be a very successful career with the choices you make and be something spectacular. But I think there has to be every perfect layer to kind of get you to that point. And it is what you're saying. You just got to follow your heart and find your pathways and your moments of uniqueness and opportunity.
Yeah, and that is very interesting because, Eric, as you've seen and as we've talked about on this show before, everyone says, oh, there's no money in skiing. There's no money in skiing. We just do it for the love. And I think Chris is a great example of that's not true. Yeah. There is money to go around, and you could still love it.
Yeah, and you can be an artist. So what I want to add to this, I always say Eric Pollard is the greatest ski artist of all time. Like as far as creating, like documenting his physical art. And then like when I watched what's the movie he made with all the talking for the first part? Drawn
from Here, yeah.
So this one, like I was like, no way, he just fucking like has enough fucking sentences to tell, like, I know who he is, but he just told me who he was through other people's words. And then he was able to do it visually, and just like, he's just that artist guy. So I put you in this lane as well. And I think the biggest point is there's so many different lanes you can create, you know, and like the thing is, these guys are artists, they're athletic artists, you know, but at the same time, man, like the art form of all of this, like the creating movies, the capturing it, like, dude, you're building a snow sculpture. You know, when I watched that shit on the project you did or whatever, and I was just like, dude, how many snow sculptures have we made in our life previous to you building that elephant? Maybe 1 million. The snow artists are like, this is the biggest sculpture I ever made. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Chris has built bigger step ups in like British Columbia. You know what I mean? Like little things where it's like that step up now has intricate design with nighttime lighting and has a purpose of a feature film.
Yeah.
Just awesome shit to see evolution that you can take from like everything, because when said and done, it's all work ethic.
Yeah.
I mean, 12 grown-ass men working on a goddamn jump in the backcountry for 2 days, so the weather's hopefully good on day 3. It's kind of like building a snow fort when you're 5.
Yeah.
But you're doing it as an adult with like being like, should we have fun? I hope we can. And but there's real consequences. Consequences you don't get your job done. Consequences you could get hurt. So it's really fun to like grow and build, and that's what I've got to see you do from like really far away. But it's so obviously black and white for me to see why wouldn't you grow in that direction. So I don't know. That's ski art, man.
I appreciate you still watching. You know, it's been a long run.
I don't watch it, to be honest, man. I just watched the fire on the mountain today. I probably even said it wrong, but I watched the accomplishments and I watched the praises that come on you. And so like what I'm always impressed by is like when people do get opinions about their art. That's my whole philosophy when making a movie. It was like, dude, I got to make them love it or hate it, because if they just say good movie, why the fuck? Like people still think Roy Silva kills people. You know how dope that is? Does anyone else remember what happened in ski movies in 2004? But they remember Roy killed people. That's a good art.
Chris, I got a question for you, and because I'm sure you've given it more thought than Iber and I could put into words on your behalf. Why do you think that your art resonates with the general public so much? 200 million views on a line that you do every day is bizarre, you know? Like, why do you think that it clicks in that way for a lot of people?
You would think I could be articulate about this one. I guess my answer would be authenticity, because everything we're talking about here is just me being my most authentic self and staying the course of what I believe through art, through creation, through all of these things. And because it's relatable for people, and because I mean, my actual physical paintings represent so much depth of loss and hardship and good times and the natural world and all of these things that people experience every day. And so as an artist, why does Basquiat, as a street artist who is addicted to heroin, sell art for $200 million? Or why does his art sell for that way? It is because of the depth and because of the relatability and because of all of these things of people struggling. And I'm not a great art critic, and I just try to deliver, whether it's my actual art or my skiing or whatever. I don't try to put expectations on myself. I'm just a vessel and delivering something that's coming through me. These ideas aren't even necessarily mine. I'm just the one delivering them, and they're coming from a lifetime of relationships and conversations and influences, and all of these things culminated into me as a person. And I don't make a ski as a designer. I create artwork until that artwork speaks to me enough to put it on a ski where the colors and compositions and emotions and everything fits. So I'm painting far more than just being a designer, being like, oh, this looks good on a ski. And same goes for the films I create now. There's way more depth to it than just the act of the sport. It is exploring the earth, mycology, just light, dark, contrast, all of these things that all of us are aware of and all of us take in every day. But I think, I think to answer your question again, I think it's just because I am my most authentic self and I'm creating art. I don't ever create something for someone else. I'm creating it for myself. I don't paint a painting being like, oh, this one's going to sell to so and so. It's just coming through me, and I'm painting to use that as my form of meditation, my journaling, my whatever you want to say. And the same goes for my skiing. It's just an expression of ideas and concepts and feelings and my love for the natural world. So all of that stuff apparently resonates with people if I had to break it down, but I don't know exactly why, but I think it's just the path of my life. And there's been a lot of, like we said briefly, just a lot of struggles, hardship between death and family dying and friends dying and children almost dying and my wife almost dying. There's been a lot in my life that's been not easy, but it's how you handle that, how you express it. And then I think people, whether it's your mother or whoever, some parents have heard of me through advocacy or my foundation or through Kimmy's sickness. Some people have heard of me through my skiing. Some people have heard of me through my art creation. Like I recently had a couple paintings accessioned into museums through a collector. Like the fact that my work is in a museum is extremely humbling. In Mocha in Jacksonville, Florida, and the Orr O'Keefe Museum, which is crazy.
Congrats on that.
Crazy. And it's nothing that I did. It's just I created the pieces. A collector found those pieces and resonated with my work, and those pieces ended up through his advocacy and support of these institutions with some other masters. My work was included. So all of it's very, very, very humbling.
When you, like, first of all, I think a way Chris was able to be authentic, he just explained it in his paintings, but the skis were his. Had his name on, has like actual feelings of who he is, right? Like if we look at any other pro models, like are those true expressions of those skiers? No, because they didn't draw it, paint it. They might have told someone or agreed or signed off on, but it's the most authentic, just like how Pollard did like his wife, right? Does that get more authentic? No, like, and that's crazy to me. Like when I'm like, well, you did what? And he's like, yeah, it's just a beautiful woman. And I'm like, okay, I see that. And that's what other people will see, you know, but as an artist, that's pretty authentic. A nude lady on your skis, you know? And so I saw that as the Benchetler with the thing, but what really I think resonates with the people is the diversity that he just brought in, all the different relations that he has with people. And I don't want to use the word collaboration, because they're not certain things you want to collaborate on because of problems in life, right? With foundations and stuff like that. But it is relations that you build. And I'm super interested, like, when did you start branching out outside of skiing with your art? Because it seemed like you were fully in with the Nimbus years, like still 100% kind of skier, you know, and doing painting and whatever your art was. But like, then all of a sudden it was like, bam. Everyone's like, dude, Chris knows Rob Machado. And I'm like, what? That's sick. He's a good surfer, right? And they're like, he's the best. And like, I just hear people like, dude, he did this for the Grateful Dead. And they're like, he's the best. I'm like, I didn't know he was a deadhead. So I was super interested on how you branched out, how those relations and why you brought them into your art other than skiing. Because you all of a sudden branched out in so many fucking ways. From an NBA legend to a jam band legends to surfing legends to so many different bizarre things really quick, I think. Well, like when do you start to like get a vibe outside of Nimbus crew and start to want to do some more shit?
it was always a part of me and my evolution as a human. And I think Nimbus, in some ways, like I said, I never wanted to disrupt Pollard's vision. And so some ways Nimbus probably stifled my growth a little bit because I was really content and happy and creative and in this little bubble with those guys. But those guys started having families before I did, and I had all of these ideas and all of these opportunities, and I did have relationships with, I mean, so what started my GoPro path before I made Chasing Adventure was Travis Rice were on a shoot and I were on a shoot together for GoPro, and my skis didn't show up. And so I was snowboarding on his extra board and just cruising heliboarding with him. And then my skis came the last day and we did some follow cams with this guy, Matt Cook. And I was like, oh man, I grew up watching skateboard movies and every movie was all movement. There's barely any static shots. This follow cams are incredible. Would you consider leaving GoPro and do a film with me? And then there's the start of the follow cam before it was what it was. And I did.
So what project was this?
Chasing El Nino. I did 4 series, but it was before that. So that was in 2014. I was on a trip with Matt, and me and Travis were in some GoPro commercial, and we hit a natural wind lip, and he follow cammed us. Okay. And then 2015, I did Chasing El Nino. Or so that
was this a full you production, or you now?
Yeah, because that was after the Sky Falls. We were done with that, and then the gimbals, the Fiat, whatever gimbals had just came out, and I was like, what if we did an entire project that was just movement? And that was a big lift. And Pollard had 2 kids. Pep was maybe 2 kids. Andy was having kids. Everyone was like, Wiegand was having kids. Ike probably had kids at that point. Everyone was.
So you are the reason why everyone now like just films while like moving all the time and uploads the clip. Like, I love it. Don't get me wrong.
I don't know if I'm the reason, but I was.
But you killed it. You're right. Because like we did it with park footage, right? With follow cams, with fish eyes, and like whether it's the VX1000s, not whole projects, but yeah, we didn't see it on a mountain.
Yeah, and thank you. And I just saw an opportunity and wanted to do something different. I no longer had Pollard's ideas; it was just mine. So I took that opportunity, hired someone full time. Did that series. That series did very well. Then Kimmy's mom was dying in 2015-16, and she had a Westphalia. Kimmy grew up driving around the country with her mom, living in a van. And Kimmy and I have talked about, like, we should get a van and do some surf trips and do the thing. And then her mom was dying and selling the Westphalia. I was like, oh my God, we need it. She's like, hell no, the thing has 250,000 miles on it. Like, we're not touching it. But then the idea got in my head that I needed a van. So then I'm like at the beginning of van life. And so I build out the van, and I share sponsors with Rob with Dragon. So I just took an opportunity to talk to him, and he influenced, without him knowing, some of my ski development. Because
you weren't friends with him previous to this time period when you got the van.
No. 2015, I just hit up Rob the same way I hit up Bill Walton, but I just hit up Rob and had a conversation with him and told him his influence that he had on my ski technology, and he was like, awesome. He's like, no, there's no way you hit up, like, so you hit up Rob and you're like, yeah, I'm on Dragon, you're on Dragon, blah blah blah, easy intro. You don't hit up Bill Walton and be like, yo, I was in the NBA, you're in the NBA, here's what's up. But you can't, like, it's got to be a different, more awkward, fun conversation. No, Bill was because of my ski. Yet again, I sent him an email, and he used to get a lot of emails, and he had an assistant that had a pair of Benchetlers. And so he deleted my email, not even knowing who I was. If he doesn't know who it is, he just delete. His assistant goes through his trash and brings him back up. And he's like, Bill, you might want to read this one. It's this skier that I know, and he's doing a project with the Grateful Dead, who you love.
If you put a Jerry Bear in the fucking, like, a subject line, you're like, me too, man.
So,
he's like, we only have 10 shows. And then you start to battle and become friends.
No, not even. He called me out of the blue. He's like, I hate the cold. I don't know anything about skiing. What are you talking about? So that turned into a very long conversation, and he could sense my passion and creativity and purpose and said he was in. So, and we built.
Well, the common denominator was Grateful Dead, right? Like,
yes. I mean, he is a band member. He's been with them since the beginning, and he's been to over 1,000 shows. He's best friends with them all. I mean, I was just at his tribute in Vegas, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And his 4 kids were there, and I mean, Luke Walton. I know nothing about basketball, and I think Bill loved that about me. Like, but Luke is hugging me, crying about his dad, and saying what an impact I had on his dad in that film, and all these things, and that. I don't know. It's very humbling and touching and emotional, and the whole thing is. And Luke, in his own right, played for the Lakers. Played with Kobe, won the championship, coached the Lakers, did all the things, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm in these alternate universes sometimes. So
okay, so you have this, like, so we got Bill Walton, we got Rob. How do you say his last name?
Machado, yeah.
And then how do you
Bill right there? Hell yeah!
I worked with him last summer
Awesome.
for like a day. Just gentle giant, good dude.
It's so incredible.
Yeah.
How do you get a Dead connection?
How do I what?
What's the connection with the Grateful Dead?
So I love music. Music has influenced my art and my skiing. If anyone has ever watched a Nimbus episode, we have only used classic rock and roll pretty much for decades. And I grew up in that world. My father listened to Bob Marley, and classic rock was pretty much it. So I was reggae and Rolling Stones and Zeppelin and all of these things. And the Dead were in my ether, but I didn't get it. And then I have a friend, call him an uncle, because he's a very close friend, who had been following the Dead since he was 16, and he's in his 60s. And he always listened to them, playing the keyboard on his dashboard, and he was just obsessed with the Dead. But he's been my music connection. He's a Hollywood talent manager, and so he has all the connections, and took Kimmy and I to an unannounced Neil Young show in a bar with 200 people years ago. And he took me to Van Morrison and Bob Dylan, like all of my trifecta of favorites. And then when Dead & Co. started playing in 2015-16, he took me to a show, and then it clicked for me. And I was like, oh my God, I get it. And then I was trying to play guitar at that point in time. So now I'm starting to try and learn Dead songs, and playing with Michelle Parker and Aaron Blatt. And they're like, Blatt grew up on the Dead because his dad was obsessed. And so it just started coming into my world. And then fast forward to 2018.
Quick question. I thought Michelle played the ukulele.
She does.
I'm a Deadhead.
She's, because of her soon-to-be husband. I don't know if they're engaged, actually.
Okay. I was just trying to always imagine, because I have old school Michelle in my head. I know she transformed in 2008 to someone. Then around 2016, she gave him another Michelle. Yeah. She's cool, but never knew the Dead when she popped up in your movie. Yeah. I was guessing all the people in your movie had some super connection, like, because it's pretty spiritual.
The connection to all of them is their connection to me. I handpicked people that represented that culture and that feeling and all the things. So yes, she's very musically inspired as well. And the Dead.
Yeah, ukulele, Michelle Parker, if you're listening.
Yeah, Michelle.
I got a
We'll
concert.
come on as an old head. Michelle and I used to ski race together. I've known Michelle since the beginning of time. It feels like.
Well, when did you meet your wife then in real life? Because I've known Kimmy Gibbler since she was, I think, 16. I met her in Tahoe because she went to high school there.
She was 19. I mean, because she dated CR around that time, probably. Yeah. But she moved here when she was 18, 19, and she knew, obviously, CR, Pep, Tanner, all of them. And then she knew my brother. I worked at an ice cream parlor that opened at 3, so I could ski all day, work ice cream at night. And then she came in and asked me if I was Peter's brother. And then it was right after my dad died, and she had lost her dad as well. And so my brother's very reserved, as you know. Maybe you know him a little better because once he gets smoked some weed with you, he might open up a little bit, but he's pretty reserved in comparison to me. So
that's funny. Yeah, because I feel like I talk to your brother a lot more in life times a million than you, and this now we're probably taking his time over right now.
Yeah. But anyways, he never really opened up about my dad. Kimmy Gibbler and I did. We just connected super quick, and I was 16 going on 17, and she was 19.
Hell yeah, she was. Super illegal, man.
Yeah.
Bad news in 2024.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know where we ended the dead thing. Oh, so the dead. Fast forward to 2018. I'm playing guitar, and I have all of Judy, Kimmy's mom's old records, and there's some dead vinyl in there because her mom grew up in that era too. And I was playing, I want to say a record was playing, and Todd Jones was here doing a shoot with Kai and me for the Bent Chetler because Kai was born on Bent's. We were sitting in my living room playing guitar, talking about the dead, and he had just been in the process of hiring this guy Brian Francis to run their apparel, and Brian Francis had done a shoe license with the dead. He was living in New York, knew nothing about skiing, and so Brian asked Todd, he's like, hey, is there any ski companies that would want to do a license with the dead, because they've had success with Burton and they want to do a ski license. And Todd's sitting there, we're playing the dead, we're talking, and a light bulb goes off. He's like, oh my God, Brian just asked me, and you guys should talk. So I talked to Brian, got introduced to the licensing team at the Grateful Dead, and then just like everything else we've been talking about in my life, I just built relationships and found opportunities.
You got a Ben Chetler with the dead graphic?
Mm-hmm.
Fucking wicked.
It was pretty awesome, and it sold out incredibly fast. But me being me, I couldn't just do a Grateful Dead ski because I was a fan of the music. I was like, well, I have to figure out how to do a segment with the Grateful Dead song. And I was like, licensing a song is going to cost me 6 figures, so I got to figure that whole thing out. And so I was like,
but did it, or did you make that up in your head, or did you already inquire?
Well, no, I mean, I made that up in my head, just knowing trying to license some of the other classic rock that we tried to license in the Nimbus days, like Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and things. But now,
what was the angle on I'm interested in this. Like, what's your solution to?
Well, so I'm doing a ski license. I'm not gonna all of their other licenses take their dead trademarks and iconography, slap it on a ski, but instead I'm like, well, I should probably paint something that is representative of me that includes some of the dead iconography. So I start painting, come up with a concept, they love it, and then I backtrack. I had done Afterglow with Sweetgrass up in Alaska where we skied at night. Yeah. And that blew my mind, built relationships there that I knew in the back of my mind there was so much undiscovered and untapped with skiing at night and how much opportunity there was. And now I'm doing a license with the Grateful Dead. I feel like in my head that I'm going to be able to get rights to their music. And I am like starting to explore in my own mind just skeletons and psychedelics and all of those things and how I can create something special. And then I just went on this path to figure out how to make a film with the Grateful Dead. And it was no easy task. And
So what do you end up doing? Are all the songs previously recorded? Because I don't know their catalog. So when I listen,
yes, the Dead are not considered Grateful Dead without Jerry. The band playing right now is Dead and Company, which is a cover band with original members, basically. But Grateful Dead was very unknowingly similar to my path, it seems. They were very forward thinking and in guerrilla marketing, or however you want to look at it, because they welcomed the reason you see so many licensees and so much logos and on every brand and stuff. It was a culture and community, and it was very welcoming. And so they would let people tape their shows, and then those people would sell bootleg tapes and then trading tapes, and that whole culture grew with the band. And so the reason they can keep releasing shows is because there's thousands of shows from 1960 whatever until 1995 when Jerry died, and they have these recordings, and so they can keep releasing vinyl and keep releasing different shows.
How do you listen to your favorite shows, man? Do you have tape cassettes or do you have them digital files?
No, I have vinyl. I listen to a lot of records.
Oh, vinyl.
Yeah. We're back.
We are back. God damn.
Maybe number 7 for you, buddy.
Okay, Chris. So I went back to see the last thing that was recorded. You talked about how they license out a lot of imagery, but you want to make your own. Then you also did some shoot in Alaska that inspired you. And then you want to combine those two into your own movie. And then Iberg was asking about, which is a whole topic in its own, the Dead and their studio albums versus all their live albums. And you're kind of
let's talk. I want to finish the discussion on how you do music, because I find the music part super interesting. So when you're going after licensing, do you just pick out your favorite songs and then ask them how much they want for it and then barter? Or how do they go about making a soundtrack with the Grateful Dead for a ski movie or action sport, whatever the fuck you want to call it?
No is the answer. The soundtrack for this was far more collaborative and intricate. So through that licensing process of the ski, I built a friendship with the president of Rhino Records, which is under Warner Music. So he's in charge of everything. Like, what I've learned about a band of that size is each band member has management, lawyers, teams of people. Then there's management and lawyers and teams of people that run the whole band. Then there's the licensing of the music and the record label and the presidents and the teams of people that handle the licensing and music and all of that. And then there's obviously Robert Hunter and Jerry and the people that are no longer with us that wrote the music or helped write the music. Like, then they have their own teams of people and the family and all of that. So approval process is very complicated for a band of that scale. And so building a relationship, unknowing at the time, I was just getting to know this human, and Mark Pincus is his name, and he loved what we're doing. Bill Walton loved what we're doing. Bill's friends with the bands, and then along the way, Mark introduced me to their legacy manager and their archivist. So this guy, David Lemieux, who's his predecessor was Dick. So Dick's Picks, if you ever listen to Serious on Dead, but he used to lock himself in the vault at Warner and listen to all the shows and knew every single show, every recording, all the things. And then so when David Lemieux came into the picture, however many decades ago, that was now his job. And so now it's Dave's Picks, and he's the one that runs runs the music. And so instead of trying to, same as Pollard, same as Nimbus, instead of trying to inject my ideas of what it should be, I wanted it to be collaborative. So I went directly to the legacy manager, asked him if he would want to be the music supervisor and help me pick the best possible versions of these songs that I like, or at least help me understand the Dead culture a bit more and how important the music is. And when they play a live show, it usually went Jerry, Bob, Jerry, Bob, Jerry, Bob. So the film was
Did you have a movie name going into this conversation?
It was pretty easy. Fire on the Mountain is the name of the song, and we're on a mountain, and
Okay, so that's what I wanted to know, if you like picked a song title.
Well, so here's the thing, which this goes into probably more how driven I am and my follow through. At this point, I was still building the relationship. The skis were made, they were approved, and I needed to film, and winter is only so long. So I convinced Mammoth Mountain and my entire team of people, lighting teams, everyone, that we had the license to the music. And at that point, nothing was set in stone.
You lied to your team?
Kind of, yes. But I don't.
But were you paying for your team?
I was paying for my team, and it is, yes, technically a lie, but at that point I was lying to myself, or at least I'm manifesting.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to your team, because all you do is bolt it and they get paid. Like, it goes in vault, and then they get paid and they say, ha ha ha.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I was going to figure out a way to pay the $500,000 or whatever it was going to cost me to license the music if the Dead didn't cooperate. So I wouldn't say I was lying, but I did not have an answer by any means.
When you first started the conversation about music and licensing, were you getting any like kind of numbers other than made up ones in your head, like what it potentially might take?
Yeah, I did some homework. That same friend that took me to every show represents musicians and actors and stuff. So it depends. If it's a commercial play and something's coming to them, it can be up into the millions. Like, I want to say Led Zeppelin could cost, like, if a Super Bowl commercial could cost $1 million. But depending on what it is, how small it is, what's the distribution, all of those things.
What was your distribution for this project that you're doing?
That's where, out of my loyalty, because I wasn't gonna let anyone make this film. This was my creation, my ideas, and so I don't have a production company. So out of the simple fact that Todd introduced me to Brian, which kind of stemmed the whole conversation, I was like, I'll give TGR the distribution. And I'm still grateful for the distribution, but as it's played out now, it's a bit hard on all of the creatives involved, because TGR got all the credit, and it was Sweetgrass Lighting, and it's Tyler DPing and filming and co-directing with me and all of these things. So I was like, TGR was maybe not the right choice, just simply because of how the ownership looked in the end.
But what was the distribution? Is it just free on YouTube, or
it's just free on YouTube?
It and making people pay in a movie theater?
It went on TGR's film tour and played before their annual film, but it was just free on YouTube because I couldn't monetize. There was no commercial tie to the Dead, so I couldn't monetize it on, like, I can't run ads on YouTube or any of that stuff.
And the only reason I ask that, because when I work with music, I say if it's for free and I'm not selling it, I'm a free music video. Shit's expensive. Yeah. And my music videos are dope lighting in authentic, luxurious places globally where the richest play. So, I mean, if you think of lighting, DPs, and you make a line budget for how long was your fucking movie? 22 minutes or something? 27?
That was like it was 38 minutes.
Okay, so 38 minutes.
You're right. It was just about 30, actually. Yeah, I took it.
So let's say 30 minutes. Divide that by 3. So now you're looking at 10 solid music videos. Now think about quoting a music video on 10 of them for 3 minutes. These are messed up numbers. So it's a minimum of $100,000 of a music video that you're offering the music group. So this is kind of my always angle when I'm showing people when I work with it, because I'm not selling it. Like, I can't afford to pay for music, but I can afford to give you a new audience, and I can afford to give you great exposure for free because I'm not making any money off it, but I sure am spending a lot of money on the production.
Yeah.
So like, that was my question then too, because I'm like, okay, so your hurdle now is you have distribution, which is great for ski sponsors, but it's a matter of free distribution when trying to get music rights. Because if you were selling it, or like you were promoting, like, oh, we got a 1 billion stop tour and it's $70 for the ticket stop, then it gets harder. But I'm sure you guys figured that out. But like, where is it at this point? Like, when you're building the soundtrack?
Yeah, it was complicated because TGR took full advantage of my vision and validation of having the band directly associated, because then they've been pumping out Grateful Dead merch since that started, and they've been making millions off of that, and I don't see that. I get a small royalty off my artwork that I've created for that, but if I were to do it all over again, I would, which I am doing it all over again. The distribution model will look different this time around, just out of making sure that all of the people involved are getting the right validation and respect that they deserve for their creation. So
all that TGR Grateful Dead merch all stemmed from all that foundation that you built prior to the movie with the Dead.
Correct.
Oh, that's crazy.
So they got a bunch. I haven't looked. So I know they have. Oh my
God, it's like all their stuff now, dude. It's all their shit, and it's so big, Iberg. They sell so much of it.
Oh, it's the most perfect mountain culture brand, right? It's like reggae without the red, gold, and green, so it kind of makes it a little more comfortable in mountain life.
Yeah,
so it's that dope shit. Grateful Dead, man, Bob Marley.
So
it was very authentic for them too, because Steve and Todd, they've followed the Dead too. So it was like it was their perfect opportunity to launch something and have involvement. And they've now built their own relationships with licensing and done the things. But yeah, I mean, it was that conversation with Todd, which I'm so grateful for, because it opened it just gave me the opportunity to have the conversation, to build the relationships, to take it where I took it, which was amazing. And so I'm very happy for their success. I think
it all worked out for the best, my friend. Hearing your story, like that one guy that gets to introduce you that's already on their team, you wouldn't even get a note without that guy. And so it's just, and then what are you working on now because of all of that one guy? So if anything, that one homie that came over from selling merch, what was his name?
Brian.
Yeah, that dude.
Yep.
That guy is like, he should get a royalty on everything.
He's done very well for TGR, for sure. I mean, he built their apparel brand hugely and they've done so many cool collabs, and those stemmed from what him and I built and what his creative ideas. Like, they've done Smokey the Bear, and they've done some really cool ones.
Future clothing?
I did some. I kind of didn't have time. I was fortunate enough to sell it out pretty decently fast, and so it was another thing that took too much time and energy, so I let it fizzle out. But between Arc'teryx and Atomic and all the things, yes, I have art on clothing. Yeah.
I got a question for you. Iberg, you might not know this about like the Dead culture, but there's a big bootlegger culture with the Dead, and that's really interesting. It's huge. It's like it might be the biggest for any band, and that's really interesting that Chris, that you've mentioned that their licensing process is really elaborate, and they're really protective over their IP because it's been so bootlegged. I don't think anything's been more ripped off than that. So it's interesting to me that they're super protective over it, even though that's probably the most ripped off shit of all time.
Well, and that's what I said earlier. Jerry wanted it to be for everyone. Jerry, Bob, all of them, Mickey as well. It was an inclusive community of like-minded people. And so Shakedown Street still fully exists at every show, and they aren't protective of those ma and pa t-shirt makers and all of those people. Like that's given them a life. Like they make money, they put food on the table, they do all the things. And the Grateful Dead management and family, the families, you know, Jerry's family, Bob's family, Mickey's family, all of that, see what their music has done for people. And this is just me speculating to some degree. I'm aware of it on some level, but they will always let it exist because it's like it is part of what they've built from the very beginning. Like they were such an open heart, open mind concept, and everyone's welcome, come record our music, do this, do that. And so they've let that continue. But then when you have the Atomics or the Arc'teryx or the TGRs taking those things and making millions because of the distribution and the platforms and the stores and all the things, then that's a different story. You need to pay back to management and pay back to the band members and all of that stuff. Yeah.
And I think you'll like this. The Deadheads are so diehard about it that there are for sure people that have never skied in their life that own Chris's ski just to have another piece of Grateful Dead memorabilia.
I get it. And like the logo, it's like, I almost put it like Wu-Tang was the same. Like, I think it's fun to know how you say it with the brand, because I'm like, oh shit, you still have X amount of band members that have the logo rights in their management. So like Wu-Tang's a gnarly one because there's a non-member that owns the right to the logo, but then each individual has access to do it. Like, so Henrik had a Wu-Tang logo on a burn helmet once, and it had to go through an individual member's access to use it only if it was tilted a certain way. And so whatever, because Method is upside down, Capadonna sideways, whatever. So they all have a different thing, but they have access. It's beyond complicated. And so it's like, I think because of the passion they probably had of the founding members and what kind of music they play, it's the same thing, right? Like there's no way you could ever have the time or energy to have a lawyer team go after bootleg shit. Mm-hmm. But if you don't embrace it, man, like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. If people love your art so much, they go make a goddamn t-shirt with your logo on it, walk around with a free billboard. Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Incredible. And I mean, yeah, replication is, I think, the birth of all learning. I've listened to a bit of Rick Rubin podcast too, and I won't be able to say it as well as him, but he was talking about the Beatles were directly trying to be Motown, and because of that, they created the Beatles. So it's like allowing some form of use and replication and just building off of whatever art you've created is an important thing to do.
That's awesome that you like Rick Rubin's podcast. Tetragrammaton is that's easily top 3 in rotation for me. He's so good.
The couple that he's done with Jack Cruz have blown my mind, just on light and sunlight and all the things.
Dude, he's awesome. I got a related to the Dead, but not directly related, because you talked about it in a different podcast. So I'll just jump right into what you said. You said you took 5 grams of mushrooms, like, just as your first. Was that your first trip, or was that just? Tell us about that experience and why you jumped straight.
Let's ask him about first time he tripped. Now that we're on this level, I'm thinking about it. Him talking about Edward 40 Hands when he's 15.
Yeah,
my first mushroom was in Mammoth when I was 21. So when was your first mushroom experience?
I was an adult. It was I don't know how many years ago now, but it was after. So I've had a lot of head injuries. I still am stupid and don't wear a helmet enough, and I don't have any good excuse or reason why. But I was on a bike trip in like a mountain bike trip with Lululemon. I was working with them at the time, and we did this thing called the BC Bike Race, which is a 7-day event race that goes from Vancouver Island back to Whistler, essentially. And I can't remember where. I hit my head, but I can't remember where, but I got a pretty bad concussion. And that was at the same time that Will Smith did the concussion movie about the football player. And around that time, Dave Mira committed suicide, the biker, from his CTE or whatever. And I had previously been introduced to Paul Stamets, who's a mycologist, who's like wildly intelligent and has been studying mushrooms since he was 16, since he did his first hero's journey, as they call it. And so I was already taking like lion's mane and chaga, and I was familiar with the medicinal benefits of mushrooms. I just hadn't gone down the psychedelic route because I felt so creative and so happy with my life. I just didn't feel like I needed to enhance anything in any way, not truly understanding what they do. And after all of those series of events, I went to a neurologist because my wife was sick of me forgetting things, and this was long before I hit my head that time. But after that, it was like the memory was very, very bad. And so I started diving deeper into Paul's literature, and Terence McKenna, who's another mycologist who's all about the stoned ape hypothesis, which is why humans have evolved and become so much smarter than our other primates, which is all pretty interesting. But I just kind of immersed myself in mycology, and then fast forward a year of research, and after going to a neurologist, and I failed some like 6-hour test where then they wanted to put me on Western medicine and start doing whatever that journey was going to look like.
Did they say you had dark spots on your brain because you've had?
No, it was I didn't go back. It was a long test of like reading and remembering a story and drawing pictures and doing all of these things. Because of networking and my connections, as you're learning in this podcast, I tend to meet some interesting people. I had access to a really well-known neurologist in San Diego, and so I went to see him, and he wanted me to come back and then start to figure out what that would look like for healing my brain. So instead, because of all the other stuff I had researched, I decided to do a hero's journey. And can
you explain what a hero's journey is? I'm totally confused.
It's basically 5 grams or more. So what is that? You obviously partake.
I don't know this shit.
I was gonna say from like weed.
He's talking about gram measurements.
It's like almost a quarter, right? Close to a quarter.
I'm asking, if I was to get an ounce bag of mushrooms, what is that in grams?
That's what I don't know. That might be, I think it's a quarter ounce, maybe. I don't know. I'm not great at math. It's a lot. It was like a full little bag like that. And
our drug dealer math is horrible on here. There's definitely people listen to this like, don't you?
Hey, we're talking about picking garden plants.
I think it's like 26 grams. I think it's 26 grams in an ounce. So if you take 5, that's like a fifth.
Okay, I'm just wondering because my way I consumed it was I would throw an ounce in water, boil it, and then Tanner and I would make hot chocolate and say, "See you in the moon." Yeah, and I think that's I'm gonna call that our hero's journey from now on. Give thanks for the dope name.
No, I think it refers more to the intensity of it.
I know. I think I went over the hero's journey and went to space camp. Continue hero journey. 4 or 5 days.
There's a worthy podcast to listen to with Paul on Joe Rogan from like years ago, maybe 2018. He's done a couple, so listen to the very first one, and he talks about it there. But anyways, it's you take 5 or more to get to that next level and strip away all the filters and melt into the earth and do all the other things that you've done with Tanner. And so, yeah, I did that. But first I rock climb a lot. And so I went and soloed a bunch of stuff in Tuolumne, which is the pass in Yosemite. And we had a huge day, and I was with my friend, and Kimmy was out of town, and I was in my van. So it's probably 2018-ish, I think.
So your thought when you were on your hero's journey was to actually try to be the superhero?
Oh, no. This was the day before. So like, because you can kind of intensify it by fasting and doing all these other steps. So I really followed the steps. So we had a huge day mentally and physically the day before, fasted, woke up, and that was all I took was the mushrooms and drank some orange juice, which is vitamin C and niacin, like some B vitamins help intensify it too. So I just like did this whole I've self-guided spiritual journey really. And it totally helped a lot. I never went back to the neurologist, but it fully reroutes neurological pathways, and Kimmy saw a huge difference. I saw a huge difference in my memory, just like remembering stupid little stuff that I would never have remembered in the past. And I've since found more and more interest in consuming psilocybin.
And that was your first trip ever? Was a here? Oh my God, you just jumped straight in, dude.
I did, yeah. I researched it a fair amount before, and I just was I was not into drugs or anything. Like, obviously, knowing this gentleman on the other side of the screen, everyone, I
didn't do anything till I was an adult. I didn't smoke, drink, nothing until I got into skiing. And then I was like, oh, that's what people do as adults.
But I mean, Pep, Tanner, CR, they all did a lot more than smoke weed all the time. And so it was around me constantly. But I just wasn't interested. And I smoked a couple times, but because my dad died of lung cancer, like my first time smoking weed, I was like, yeah, I don't think it's good that my lungs burn. I'm going to not do that. So it's like, I wasn't, and my brother was into that stuff too. So I was surrounded by it, but I just never had the desire for it. And then when there was a necessity to cure something and maybe evolve as a human a bit more, I've always been open-minded for what it does. And obviously with my wife's cancer journey, it's like THC has been a godsend for her, and she still is like takes a lot. And there's a lot of incredible studies on how it kills cancer cells and does all kinds of things. So I think there's a time and a place for plant medicine, and mushrooms found their time and place for me. They've become a part of my life.
So I have a question, because Phil Casabon's super into mushrooms, like super duper, and he's all into super sciences. He uses all those fun words that you use. The only one I remember is chaga, because chaga sounds fuck. But as you evolve in it, and I see, like, because we research it on like who I don't know, because he's his own guy, right? Like foraging in the forest, doing like every single thing from the food to also the vision stuff or whatever, the mental stuff. But like, do you do everything yourself, or do you actually like deal with like companies now that sell like all the shit that you say?
Yeah, I deal with companies because I live in a desert with no rain, so very few.
Who's the dopest fungus company then? Is my question to you.
Is Paul Stamets. It's Host Defense. It's called, and because then its purest form and all the like organic this, that, and the other thing. And then psilocybin's a different story. He obviously doesn't sell drugs, but
you can buy psilocybin down the road at the native reservation. They sell it at their weed stores, dude, right near your house.
yeah that's psilocybin's easy to find, but I still try to find good source, obviously. But
that's not something that like you found through like a brand name company, because I've seen it like pop up like it's legal in Denver now, or
Yeah.
I think mushrooms are legal in lots of states now. I don't know.
I mean, you would probably know from smoking weed too. I think it's like it's going to be the same as how I eat organic and I care about what I put in my body and all of those things. It's going to be the same. Like if psilocybin is growing under cow shit and that cow is ingesting tons of hormones and whatever else.
I want organic, dude. I wonder if I ever had organic mushrooms now. Now you got me bugged out. I was eating unorganic shit mushrooms.
Yeah, well, you're just getting everything else leached into it, but that could intensify the trip. Who knows? You're taking it with all these weird hormones. My brother, he tripped me out the most. So he went after his little journey here in Mammoth. He decided to go back to school. He went to UNR and ended up being the highest graduating engineer at UNR, which has a super good engineer school. And they got published in Science Magazine while he was back at college for finding the hormones that they were feeding the cattle where when they would then shit it out was getting in the runoff, and then the fish were growing the wrong reproductive organs. And so they figured all that out on the chain of events. And now my brother is an environmental engineer and does river restoration on different reservations and different stuff.
All because he got hyper focused and stoked on life and nature off eating mushrooms that made his brain change that came out of poop.
I mean, he ate mushrooms just, I don't know if he's done a hero's journey, but he ate some younger than me because he was partaking in all that.
But think how inspired he was when those fucking fish were infected off the poop.
Yeah.
That's the mushrooms grew. I thought that's where you're going to go with the story. And you're like,
Yep.
now it's mushroom genius.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's just more so on the hormones and things that come out of those creatures that we don't even know the ramifications. Because it was supposed to be killed in the sunlight, I think he said, but it would regenerate at night. The hormones would like regenerate, then get in the runoff, then they're in the water supply, then the fish. Yeah, it's the whole cycle of life. It's interesting.
Saying Peter's pretty smart nowadays.
Yes, he is. Him and Keenan Rice. You remember Keenan? Yeah, you would for sure would remember Keenan, but he sold a company to Google for a whole hell of a lot of money. Him and 7 others.
Yeah, was he a Mammoth kid?
He lived here. He was, I forget, I think he was Steamboat kid, but I went for his 40th. We all went to Chatter Creek with all the old dogs. Ricky Tucker. You remember Ricky, obviously.
His name, I got a text yesterday that says, I'm biking in a random place in Minneapolis. Some kid named Ricky from Edina says hello. Haven't even thought of his name for over a decade. And then 24 hours later, Ricky Tucker again.
There it is. Universe works in mysterious ways. Yeah, I went with my brother, Ricky, Gabe, Taylor, it was so fun. I was the only skier on the trip, but it was all the old boarders that I grew up looking up to. And
I was explaining to my wife what a hesher is because of Ricky Tucker yesterday. Like, man, heshers don't exist anymore. He was the king of the heshers.
Mammoth was a beautiful place. It still is. I love that my children get to grow up here, but I don't think it's what it was when you lived here.
I don't think any place has ever been like that, man. Like, to be honest, like if you really break it down, when I say like 1,200 kids under like 21 live there, you know, like all your friends worked at the places. Yep. Like every grocery store, gas station, sushi, all your friends delivered the pizzas. They were the bartenders, worked at the workout place. You know, and then all of a sudden it's just like, and then owned the cool grenades shop, made the cool stickers, and then every super pro had their second house there from all over the world that they rented. And yeah, it was fucking awesome. So I look back, I'm just like, I don't think that it's just not real. There's nothing real. It was the beginning of ski and snowboard, like height of popularity. And
it's pretty incredible. I still feel like I'm living in an alternate reality at times. I think it snows out of some people, but
it snows 20 feet. Do you snow skate down the roofs of buildings and then say I'm Alaskan snow skating?
We still jump off I mean, now I have kids jumping off the deck and doing all the things. I haven't slid steel in a long time. I know the new heads are not going to appreciate that about me, but I still have like one of our old handrails that we used to set up in the yard just in case my kids one day want it. So
how old are your kids?
3 and 6. So we're still pretty early in that stage of life.
I got so I want to tie this back in on the track.
Sorry.
So no, but no, it was great. It was great. We got down a great Mammoth sidetrack. I love Mammoth. So you collab with the Dead. You make a great movie. You take 5 grams of mushrooms prior to that. Now people tripping at their concert in Vegas are out of their mind on some sort of journey. They look all around them, and it's you. You're skiing in the sphere. So, and this isn't, I mean, this is like brand new. This is like less than a month old development. So how did that all come about? And yeah, let us know, because that is insane how cool that is.
I have to just give my thanks and credit to Bill Walton, really stemming back to what we were talking about with the first project. I built such a meaningful relationship with that man. And to backtrack more, after the film, 2019, COVID happened. We had so much interest and positivity around the first film, and we had so much footage like of making the film that we were like, we should do something. So I reached out to Bill and I was like, hey, would you be interested in doing a behind the scenes on like your involvement and why we made the film? And he was like, anything for you, Chris. So then he introduced me to the president, I believe, of ESPN. We turned it into a 60-minute special, and I had so much imagery that I had paid all these photographers for. So I made a coffee table book. And so that took a huge chunk of my life. And then we released a vinyl LP of the soundtrack with the Grateful Dead. So there was like this package deal. It was
when did this come out?
2021, maybe?
Dude.
Yeah.
Chris,
probably have a book up here, actually.
Can you still buy this book?
No, it sold out extremely fast.
And how many books and vinyls did you produce?
Couple thousand. I can't
remember.
Can't remember.
And the book's all ski shit?
Yeah, let me it was pretty sweet.
I'm gonna do opening one right now. Look at this.
Yeah. I think this should be one. I kept a couple just in case.
That's good, buddy. Smart thinking.
Smart thinking. Don't even know how I'm supposed to open this thing. And I'm the one that closed it up.
Hey, a couple thousand. So did people buy the vinyl with the book? Or
Yeah.
were they set?
Yeah, I was going to show you how it came out. Here we go. I designed wrapping paper and all the things, but yeah, it was like a full. So I had the artwork on the record there.
Is this your art on the cover?
Yeah.
What?
That's the soundtrack, and then my artwork. This is a collab.
You have a Grateful Dead album cover.
Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. One of the coolest things just happened to me ever, actually, is the Grateful Dead are about to celebrate 60 years, and they put out a call to all their past album artists and their network, and I was chosen to be commissioned for their 60th anniversary logo, actually. So everything that comes out on all the licenses next year is my art. I created their logo for them. Crazy.
This show will probably come out early November, I'm guessing. So however that relates, if people
They
get
won't
this.
they don't celebrate 60 until 2025. So it'll come out with my film and all this other stuff I have planned. That
Fucking awesome, Chris. That's pretty nuts if you think about it. Like, some people's whole life is about that they had a cover for them. Like, yeah, I did the third album cover. You're like, I don't know, you're like 25 years deep in your sport. And you're like, yeah, I did the album cover. I got it because I made a soundtrack to a ski movie that had a ski coffee table book. Fucking awesome. Skiing. I'll say it again. Pretty awesome.
Dude. Chris, you haven't heard the other episodes yet, but Iberg is always telling the new guys to do more, take this and enhance on it, incorporate other elements, and you are literally the poster child for it. Like you're like, yeah, and there's wrapping paper. I designed the wrapping paper too. Like, there's nothing that you haven't seen the opportunity to enhance what you're doing and not taking it. So that is so impressive. Like, yeah, this is so sick. Iberg, have you ever seen anyone go this deep on any of the stuff they're involved with?
Yeah. I mean, like, if you're like, Chris has enough absorption in the music culture and sports culture. I mean, like, dude, like, do you remember like Thicker Than Water? You're a surf guy. So when like I saw this packaging come out, and this is like a surf movie from 99, 98. Like, there's so much attention. Right, I've gotten like CDs where it's like wood cases that like is opened up and then screwed together for a CD. So it's like the packaging is so big, but it's mostly about what you have opportunity to do and how much you can do more, you know. But like, yeah, I've seen it, but it's like the illest shit to do because it means, you know, it's, I don't know, it's more than just finishing a project and saying I finished it, because it's never really done. There's always more you can do. And then I just see him doing the most he can do. I'm sure there's more that he wants to do when he puts out a project.
Yeah. Yep. Which is why I'm doing more at this point in time. But
so now I want to know about the next movie. So
yeah, well, I guess I got off track on Ethan's question there, but for paying my respects to Bill, he helped that carry on. And then Mickey Hart, who's the Dead's drummer, he's been playing with them since he's 22 and he's 80 now. So he's been there almost the full 60 years. But he reached out to Bill to tell me that he wanted to turn the lights back on, which this was for their final tour last year, because he wanted to use new footage that hadn't been in Fire on the Mountain. And I was already in the process of producing and working towards this next film. So then that opened the door. I was like, well, here's the footage for your final tour. So he took my footage and played it on the final tour last year. I think it was in Raleigh. I don't know how you pronounce it. Raleigh. And it might have been some other places, but the Dead historically evolve every show. And so that made me realize that Mickey was still, because Mickey was a huge part of the 60-minute special. He came, did some interviews. We did them all through Zoom, but he also came to the world premiere of the film at World of Macintosh in New York, which did the Dead's original Wall of Sound in the 70s. And he came up and spoke, and we had this thing hosted by GQ, and it was me, Rob, Bill, and Mickey doing a panel about the film. And so Mickey's been the closest member of the band to this whole project. And when he wanted to use my footage, I said absolutely. And then that opened the conversation of this next film and me wanting to collaborate directly with him, because I had the concept of bringing him to Mammoth and his rhythm. I wanted to build a stage, go cue the sculpture, and have his drums and his rhythm bring the mountain to life as part of this narrative story that we're doing here. And so when I pitched that whole concept, that kind of got morphed into what they were doing at the Sphere. And so,
are you trying to say you are creating original music with these people?
We did with Mickey for that portion, but so what what the film is going to be is not going to be originally scored, because it'll still be Grateful Dead, because it needs Jerry, who is no longer alive. So there will be portions, but yes, we created an original track for while we were skiing, or Mickey created an original track, and he brought his entire drum set to Mammoth, and he also is a painter, and he paints.
So you recorded on the mountain as well.
Yeah, well, he pre-recorded the track, and we had a full PA system. Like, it was, we're talking about like Grateful Dead level of production here. So it was like shipped by Rock and Roll Hall of Freight.
How do you fund a project like this? Because it seems bigger than skiing.
It is far bigger than skiing, and it's belief in my 20 years of, going back to, there's no money in skiing. If you have the right passion and mindset and drive and follow through, like, I don't think I would be sitting here if I didn't have a proof of concept all these years before. Then there's people want to do cool shit. Brands want to do cool shit, and Arc'teryx came through in a massive way. They're like, and so did everyone did, but Arc'teryx truly sees my vision and is believing in it and helping me bring this to life. And
hey, really gonna sell a fucking suit that glows in the dark that looks like a skeleton?
No, but that's the thing, is there's no return on investment as this. Like, in my selling this concept, I don't want to create a commercially successful thing. I want to create art. And so I had to sell them on why it's important for me to create art for community, culture, all of the things, and the brand awareness and the authenticity that they'll get being attached to that is important enough to them. So it has nothing to do with they're going to sell more jackets because of this film. And it has everything to do with believing in a shift in culture and inspiration and all of the things that are important of why we make films in the first place. Maybe some people make them to make money, but well, in my eyes, skiers are just artists expressing themselves and trying to get that expression out through all these different mediums. And that's ultimately what I've done and what I continue to do. I'm just doing it on the largest global stage now by being in the sphere. That was a bit of a mind warp for me. It's like, it's as big as it gets.
Oh, is it when you license footage if you own it, right, for the sphere?
Yeah, but
give it because it's a collaboration in life and you guys are working on so many projects together.
I am not trying. It's not a monetary gain for me. I could try to do the whole license thing probably, but I don't even go there because I have a band member coming here, giving his time, doing this thing. Like, there's so much depth there that I'm doing it for the creation. It's not for the money.
I could never.
You diverted from something that you're saying that was interesting, and I love a spectacle, so I need to know more about this. So when Mickey Hart came to town,
we had it pretty. I flew him in privately through friends' connections, so he flew private, and then I drove him around, and we kept it pretty mellow. But yes, if people knew that a member of the Grateful Dead was playing a live show up on the mountain at night, that would have been a sea of people trying to.
Dude, there would have been people flying in from out of town just to poach it. Yeah, that's insane.
But I kept it, everyone on the project signed NDAs, and we kept it very under wraps for a long time. So.
Dude, this is big. This is big time stuff we're talking about, Iberg. This is some of the biggest stuff we've talked about so far on this show. This isn't no rinky dink urban rail. This is some big shit.
It is. It's. I don't know any other word than humbling, but it is. I think if I can give any advice, it's just treat people with kindness and respect, and those relationships you build are going to take you as far as you want to go in life. That's all I've done, is just tried to treat everyone as equals and as well as possible, and make make decisions for your right reasons, and you're gonna make it in this world. But it's not an easy path, as we've discussed. It takes a humongous toll on my family. Like, my work-life balance is not healthy by any stretch of the imagination, and my kids suffer, my wife suffers, all of those things. But I try my best to balance. I mean, even I never thought I would have the amount of emails that I have now, and phone calls and Zooms and all this crap. Like, taking time to do these things, it's not an easy task. But when it's an old friend as Iberg, I had to say yes. So
thanks, man. I do appreciate it, because for me, I'm just like, I mean, fuck, the last one we did show, it's like I get off a 2-hour Zoom and then do a 4-hour this thing, and then I'll go back to another 2 hours, and then another 2 hours. Then it's like my kids are waiting for dinner. The phone rings again. I'm like, I'm an asshole. So thanks for taking the time, man. I do appreciate it. And I think your story is like, it's super important, because it's such a unique thing. And I think the only way for whatever success, personal, financial, is like create your own lane, because anyone else's path is not really which one is chosen for you, you know?
Correct. And use those previous paths as inspiration. And I think that's been a very good lesson for me to learn from the Rick Rubins of the world, and wherever else I hear it, is like, don't pretend like you're the first one to do anything. Like, imitate, copy, do everything and anything possible to find your own self and find your inspirations, and find, like you're talking about Wu-Tang and what Henrik has done and all of the, he is such an authentic being. He's so authentically Henrik, and he's was clearly inspired by Tanner and yourself and the McKells and all the people of our generation. And it's just like, just don't worry about that you are the only one that's ever done anything, and just worry about why you're doing it and what the importance is. And I think you can find some pretty interesting pathways.
That's so beautiful. I think we're reaching a natural conclusion. I got some random questions. Ivor's got some random questions. Let's get into that really quick. Chris, this is a random one I have from my last summer at Mammoth. Do you own the cabin up in Mammoth, right by the spot?
Yes, I do.
Okay, is that where you're at right now, or no? Because that seemed pretty remote. Okay.
That is a nice little addition to our home.
Yeah, that's sick, because we were jumping there, and then someone's like, "Yo, you see that house right there? That's Chris Benchetler's." I'm like, "No fucking way!" So I wanted to ask you that while I had the opportunity.
Yep, it's a beautiful little spot, and built in the 30s, and nice, no service up there. Nice little getaway.
I can't imagine you get much peace except at night, because it's like there's so many people jumping literally.
We love it. I mean, there's only 8 cabins over there, 9 cabins, and all of the neighbors are multi-generational and older, and they were all built in the 30s, I think, by the same individual. And they don't necessarily love how crowded it's got. And of course, but it's nice when there's peace and tranquility. But with 2 small kids that want to be out there playing and swimming and jumping in the water too, it's like, I don't mind the chaos. It's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That was Aaron Durlester that told me that, and he's a man.
Okay. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
He's another one that asks me for advice all the time. He's such a nice kid, and he's so talented, and it's so hard for me to give advice. I mean, it's easier in a 3-hour conversation than just like, what should I do to get sponsored? I'm like, I don't really know. Just be yourself, like, just
that doesn't help.
Find your path.
Like, just do it for a decade. That doesn't help.
Yeah, you just can't give up, basically.
Yeah. Word. Iberg, what you got that's random?
Do you know, so don't have a reoccurring theme in our podcast other than people's stories and creating their own past. I was telling Phil Cass about this, and he's like, "That's bullshit, man. You need something awesome every single time." And he's like, "You know this or that," and so he's like, "All right, you know, have you ever heard of the Drink Champs podcast?"
I haven't actually.
Fucking awesome. Has every one of your favorite rappers if you love rappers. But so they always have a verses. So my question to you first is, do you know any of the young guys in the sport nowadays? Or are you totally kind of out of it? Or what do you think your knowledge is of young shredders?
I never intended to be out of it, and I hate to say that because the youth is so vitally important for our sport. But because of my work ethic and mental well-being, I just can't spend the time on social media, and I can't spend the time like educating myself like I did when I was younger. And I need to give whatever little bit of free time I have to my children and my wife and the real important things in life. And so if I'm painting in a studio, if I could listen to more interesting podcasts that are educating me, I do listen to podcasts when I paint. I listen to music a lot too, but there's certain ways that I ingest media, and I see less and less films, and I see less and less edits, and I see less and less things just because life has gotten complicated. I mean, we didn't even dive into my personal life, but it's been a journey the last few years, and that's my wife is a beast of a human in the best way possible, but we've been dragged through the coals a bit at times. So life.
Yeah, I'm stoked, man. Gibbler's still around. Fucking awesome, man. It's pretty. We didn't dive into it. I don't know if you want to. I think I was but yeah, that's why I made the point early on in the conversation. Like when you see someone's life that's super awesome, know that never wish to trade like places with anyone, no matter what, because your life is your life, and also you don't know the hard times. Mm-hmm. You know, like I didn't know about your dad, or I forgot about it. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a young fucking age.
Yeah.
So like, and then the rest that comes on it. So that was kind of my learning lesson without deep diving your personal, you know, is just like, hey, just know that life is fucking hard. And the guys that are successful and do creative things, they probably had some gnarly shit happen, and that's why they push harder.
Yeah.
So that's my theory.
I know. Yeah. I mean, we're all created through our life experiences, and it's even just Bill's death. My mom did get remarried. Her husband unexpectedly died a few months ago. Like Kimmy's, both of her parents have died. We've been very surrounded by it. So it's like it fosters a lot of beautiful perspective though too, and it comes through in my art making, and it comes through in a lot of unique ways. So I'm grateful for it, even though it's difficult at times. But
as I say every day, even this morning to my sister, just give thanks for life every day and do the most you can with it. Other than that, give thanks for problems and troubles. They all have equations with solutions.
Yeah, they do.
So, the reason why I asked you if you knew anyone, because Phil's idea was like to give you a old guy versus new guy and verses that you'd have to pick who's doper. So I'm going to modify his list and only use the old heads, and then I'm going to make an old head versus old head. And you
give me a new guy, maybe in the. Maybe don't, because then I
won't. Old one will be more fun because you'll feel bad about who you're going to have to pick. So we'll start with the fun one. Pollard or Pep?
Pollard versus Pep?
Yeah, who you think's doper?
That's a very difficult question.
Could have been the last one, but I came out swinging with the hard first one.
Yeah, skiing wise, Pep was the dopest there was. So I guess at times I would have said Pep for sure, and then as I evolved and grew, understanding the influence and art Pollard has and what he's done for the sport and all the things, that's outweighs Pep. That's a tough one.
Okay, so here's the deal of this game. So in the Drink Champs game that we stole this from, like, the idea is if you say both, you have to take a shot.
Okay.
So that makes the game a lot more fun. It makes you think about how many times you want to say both these people are awesome.
Yeah.
I'm only going to give you Pep versus Eric because it was really mean and hard for a first one. So I'll give you maybe an easier one because what I'm doing is taking his list and then eliminating the young guy. So let's say Simon or Tanner.
Tanner.
Crichton or Vanuler.
Crichton.
This is fun. Who can I make him against? Sammy or TJ?
Ooh. Well, can you define doper for me?
It's like who you say. Like if you were like, oh man, it's all personal preference. You're
well,
like
Sammy's incredible skiing wise for sure, but then TJ personality wise and just like human wise, he would be high on my list. But yeah, so Sammy skiing wise for sure. I
should have done like TJ or Bibby. That would have been a better one.
Yeah, TJ. But I like Bibby too.
Sarah or Christy?
Sarah or Christy?
Yeah, you got to pick one.
That's tough. I'll pick Christy because she's like a sister. She's still in my life. She was just at our house not that long ago, but I loved Sarah deeply. So,
safe decision. Who else would be fun? Yoon or Candide?
Candide's doper than everyone. You kidding me? He's fucking good.
Duncan Adams or Adam DeLorme?
I know Duncan's work better, so Duncan.
Ballinger or LaRose?
Ballinger. Taught me a Cork 7. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I don't think I have anymore. That's it.
Yeah,
sorry.
That was easy. Pollard and Pep was difficult. The rest.
I know, I should have gave you that one last.
But if you're going off just straight skiing, like... Who's the GOAT?
It's all just your personal preference, you know. Because like sometimes you hit like someone a little more.
Yeah.
So you're saying Candide's the GOAT? That's your conclusion?
Undisputable. There's zero way anyone could ever argue that. I think there's in terms of influence, accomplishments, style, all of it. He's like he doesn't make a wrong move. He's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, that was a good segment. It's gonna be tricky because we're gonna have to ask. We need people that know both the new and the old, and I'm not
Give me a couple just new names. I want to look.
Yeah, he has a list right
now. Mango, Alex.
Oh, I would have known Mango. He's amazing. Okay.
So was Mango versus Pep was the Phils.
It's gonna be hard for me to diverge my generation though, because Pep's influence on me was so grand, you know.
Alex Hall versus Tanner Hall was Phil's thing.
Alex is freaking impressive. Like if
Ferdinand Dahl, aka Ferdy. You know him?
I know the name, but I would need to like go do some homework on the scheme.
So go check this kid out. So he's the illest fucking young kid. He creates everything. Created like a thing called Jib League. That's like a U.S. Open mixed with an invitational.
I've heard of that.
He also created a clothing company called Capiche. He's a Norwegian kid. So he's all about like just creating shit and skiing.
Amazing. What Josh Christensen, he's crushing. There's some like
31. He's old head now.
He's old shit. I mean, some of these kids that I see like just dipping their toes into AK and stuff. I think the sport's going to go to some cool places. I'm excited to see.
You're going to have to watch them. Quit creating.
I'm going to try my best. I mean, I still catch stuff on Instagram. I'm not like completely disconnected, but I am not actively searching or reading forums or is New Schoolers even still a thing? I think it's
places around, but I mean, like, that's why I'm doing the show, right?
Yeah.
So I can even like see who people say, and then I'd be like, "Oh, who else you guys think is dope?" And they're like, Toad Mond Rigmore. And I'm like, who? And then I have to figure it out now, and I'm going to go see why he takes some talks and why does everyone love him. I don't know.
Is Parker White new or old? He's pretty dang sick.
Old.
Oh, okay. And so is Chris Logan. They were the young bucks as I was becoming the older generation. But
that's fun. I still think of you as younger than them.
It's weird. I mean, I might not be that far off, but I was like, because Sean Logan, I'm still filming with him. He's on this project.
Yeah, like I think of him so young because I just think of Sean as like the guy at Mammoth that was there. And then all of a sudden Chris is like the younger baby, like, and then there's Devin, and it's like, what? Sean has siblings?
It's so cool. Awesome, gentlemen. Thank you for the time. And it's so good to see your face, Ethan. It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, dude, it was great to meet you. I've heard so much, obviously, over the years. So getting the chance to talk with you and ask you some questions was just awesome. Loved it. Thank you for your time, man. That was, especially with how busy you are, middle of the day, 3 hours, epic.
Yep. I'm going to go play some catch up now, but I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks. Good to see you, buddy.
You too. Be well. I'll say hi to Kimmy for you. She'll be excited to know I was just talking to you for 3 hours.
Go watch a Full House, get all stoked.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Take care, gentlemen. See ya.
Peace. Wow. What a guy.
Fun, isn't it? Shit is fun doing it.
Dude, it's awesome talking to someone that's just doing so much, dude. It's just endless material to work with. It's like, oh, you're doing this, and then there's like fucking 50 branches that go off of everything that he does. That could have been an 8-hour conversation if we wanted it to be.
Usually we could have went on, what did he call it? The super...
Oh, the hero's journey. We could have gone on a hero's journey with him.
Interview with him.
Yeah, what'd you think? You've known him for a long ass time. What'd you think of that?
I thought it was awesome. Like, it was so fun. It was mostly like, for me, that kind of shit. It's like, no way. Like, because when you get older, it's like, are you really calling someone to catch up when you haven't talked to them in a decade or two? Because that person doesn't answer if you call them because they know they don't have that kind of time in their life.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. So you lose friends over time when you don't travel and see them. So it's fucking awesome, man. Because I never watch any of his shit. I just know how much people talk about him.
Yeah.
And then I see you pop up all the time. Projects pop up all the time. So I don't know. It's pretty fun to see someone evolve and like to think about it. If he's at 24 years in the game, like he easily's got another 40.
Yeah.
You know, and he skis in his videos.
Yeah.
It's not like he's not skiing and just like producing fucking feature films in Hollywood. He's showing skiing in Vegas, showing skiing. And so that's what I love most about everything. I'm like, man, every single thing we talk about, Mosley on fucking Saturday Night Live, homie doing thing in Vegas now. Like, it's all only because of doing tricks on skis.
Dude, he's got the makings of like the next Warren Miller level name to himself. Like if he stays on course going as hard as he is for the next 40 years, he's going to be the biggest creative name in skiing ever.
Yeah, we'll see. Like, it'll be fun. Whatever his next step is, where if it totally takes out of skiing, because skiing has so many elements in creation, weather, and things that cause reasons to fail.
Yeah.
And so when you start to get creative, like it's all of a sudden, like if you can cut off the fat of failure chances, I don't know, like, you know how easy it is to make a song? It's not easy, don't get me wrong. But if I want to make music, it's a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails. But weather's never a problem. It's just human interaction.
Yeah.
So it's fun where creative brings you. Like even painting. You can just sit in that room and paint for the rest of his day. Like, rain's not going to stop them.
Yeah.
So it's fun when creative people go because whatever allows them to blossom the most, that's what direction they go.
Yeah. All right, that was a great one. 3 hours. Who do we have next? We don't even know. Do we have our next old head yet? Do we know who we're doing?
11 at 3 hours, man. I'm up to like 3.3 DPH.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay, I always forget to ask you how many doobies you're smoking because it's just... So you're at 11 right now in 3 hours. That's pretty good.
About 3.3 DPH.
Yeah, 3.3 DPH. And we don't know who we have next.
No, but you got to get someone. I mean, everyone's telling me we got to get Unicorn on here. I mean, next week, we don't even have an old head. I got to figure that out today. But I know in 2 weeks we got Phil Bellinger, so that's like 4 weeks in our series.
Yeah.
We got to figure out some shit.
We'll figure it out, man. We got some good context to leverage.
What did you think? Were you stoked on it? What's your final opinion on Chris Benchetler?
Final verdict, dope, really good guy. He's just a dude you want to hang out with.
Good dude.
That's someone you want around you a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think the good humanness is there. There's very handful of people that are just that, like, I don't know. Here, it's like a JP almost, like same kind of vibe. Like you're just like, wow, I just want to be around that guy. It's fucking fun and nice.
Yeah, it's just a good dude.
He's always trying to create something, so he's not boring, and he makes me want to be better.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, he wants, the weather's great outside. He wants, like, I want to go do shit now because of talking to him.
Go do shit, my friend. We'll do another one of these next week.
All right, we'll figure it out. I will see you next week.
All right, peace.
Peace out, everybody.